we're going to reconvene this Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and we'll begin this second part of the day with the Finance Director's statement, and then we'll hear each category read out by Ms. Saban. Please proceed, yes. Yes, y'all right after the office of the mayor. She's got to come in town to accept. So please proceed.
Great. Thank you, Council President. Good afternoon, members of Council. I will just briefly walk through the presentation that I have prepared for today, which is basically the same as the presentation we walked through on Friday. So, brief overview. The total annual appropriation proposed in this year's budget is $2.06 billion, and that is composed of the general fund, the enterprise funds, the special revenue funds, internal service, debt service, and agency. And we'll get into a little more detail on each of those throughout the presentation. Thought it would be helpful to spend some time just on the economic outlook for the city as we begin this discussion. At the highest level, we continue our post-pandemic recovery in the city and in the broader region. And a few data points that I thought might be of interest. First is if you look at employment within the city from November of 2020 to November of 2023, it has grown by 8.1%. So that's all people employed just generally within the city limits, not focused on city employees. And during that time, the labor force has been really steady. I think it's grown by about 300-400 people. So, one takeaway from that information is that the amount of folks in the labor force has remained constant. And so as we've increased employment within the city, that really ultimately means that folks that have been looking for jobs are actually able to find them at an increased clip. And as a result, unemployment sits at, as of November of 2023 at 3.9%, which is the lowest level since the Bureau of Labor Statistics has been recording that information starting in 1990. Looking at the more macroeconomic picture, really just wanted to spend a moment on inflation, which has been a top topic of discussion over the last couple of years, nationally and internationally. So inflation does remain a concern among federal economic policymakers, particularly at the Federal Reserve Bank. It has abated year over year from December 2022 to December 2023. We ended December of 2022 with inflation of 6.5%, and looking at the most recent reporting in December 2023, we're at 3.4%. So a really healthy decline year over year, but still well above the Fed's target of 2% for inflation. So as a result, they've held the Fed funds rate, which is the rate at which banks can borrow, financial institutions can borrow from the Federal Reserve at 5.3% over the last several months. Now looking at the enterprise funds, the major enterprise funds, just a brief kind of snapshot, beginning balance, revenue estimate, expense estimate, and projected ending balance. The Division of Water has a beginning balance of $156.6 million. We are anticipating revenues of $345.4 million, which gives the division a total amount of resources of $539.5 million.
Yes. So the director is reading off of the presentation that we had in the February the 16th presentation. Okay. And I think he's on page, it's not page, but it's where major enterprise funds. All right. Please proceed.
Thank you, Councilman. So we're projecting expenses for the Division of Water at $382.9 million, which is in excess of the anticipated revenue. As a result, the division will spend down some of its beginning balance from $156 million to $119 million. This continues the trend over the last few years of the Division of Water using cash on hand to pay for a variety of capital improvement projects. We're going to see that slow down and return to the use of debt this year and going forward, because we'll be at what is a good level of cash on hand for the enterprise. With respect to that, we do anticipate a bond issuance by the city for the benefit of the Division of Water, and that was authorized by council last year in Ordinance 899/2023 in an amount not to exceed $90 million. Looking now to the Division of Water Pollution Control, we have a beginning balance of $25.2 million, estimated revenues of $38.5 million, which gives the enterprise total resources of $63.8 million. Projected expenses are $42.1, so it's similar to the Division of Water, a slight mismatch between expenses and revenues, which will result in the division spending down some of its cash on hand. But same story as the Division of Water. Water Pollution Control has been using cash on hand to pay for capital projects over the last several years, and also intends to issue debt this year. And we're anticipating that not to exceed $45 million for water pollution control. And that was also authorized by council ordinance last year, number 898/2023. For the remaining two major enterprise funds, Cleveland Public Power and the Department of Port Control, a slightly different story for each of these entities versus the divisions of water and water pollution control. Cleveland Public Power has a beginning balance of $30.5 million, estimated revenues of $213.1 million, which gives it total resources of $243.7. We're anticipating expenses of $213.9, which is there's an $800,000 gap there between expenses and revenues. So a slight spend down of cash on hand, but essentially static as to where they will have begun the year. We do not anticipate any bond issuance for CPP this year, and this year's budget maintains the same level of capital investment as we've seen in prior years. In the background, as I think you all know, CPP is engaging in a rate study to assess the ways in which it can generate more revenue and operate on better financial footing. Finally, looking to the Department of Port Control, this is a unique enterprise in our organization in that the airlines, which are the tenants of the airport, are essentially responsible to cover costs of operating the airport system, and so, as you've seen in prior years, revenues and expenses always line up even there. And so we have the same anticipated beginning balance and ending balance, and revenues and expenses are equal as a result. With respect to the other financial plans for the Department of Port Control, we do anticipate creating a short-term borrowing program, which would provide some cash to do enabling projects for the master planning work that we know is coming at the airport. There's some lower level work that has to be done so that the bigger work can be completed. That ordinance will be coming before council to request authority to establish that, but did want to give you all the heads up that is coming.
Just say.
Through the chair, we do anticipate creating a short-term borrowing program for the airport, so that the airport has cash to get some minor projects completed before the master plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, to the director.
So now focusing on the general fund, we have a beginning balance of $46.3 million. We are estimating revenues to be $779.3 million, which gives us total general fund resources of $825.6 million. Expenses are estimated to be $778.6 million, which gives us a structural balance of $616,000 and will enable our projected ending balance to grow slightly from $46.3 million to $46.9 million. Taking a moment to look at 2023 in review, focusing on the general fund. We had a healthy financial year last year, reflected in part by another bond rating upgrade. So in 2023, the summer of 2023, Fitch Ratings upgraded the city's issuer rating for the first time in many, many years, probably since the 90s. And this upgrade was from an A+ to a AA-, which, as the mayor noted in his presentation, brings us now at the AA level at all three of the major rating agencies, which is a very healthy place to be in, and one that many of our peer cities is not in across the country. We had revenues adjusted revenues of $735 million last year, and I use adjusted to modify that because it removes the revenue that hit the general fund as a result of revenue recovery, which was $141 million. And I thought it would be helpful to adjust that to give us a clearer sense of what our actual revenues, recurring revenues are, as opposed to revenues that are impacted by one-time federal funds. And then similarly on the expense side, I've adjusted that to take out the $141 million of expense that went out of the general fund into our favorite subfund 10SF 400. And so if you adjust for that, we had expenses of $737 million and a deficit of $2 million, which had our structural balance. That explains the reduction of our beginning balance compared to our ending balance in 2023. Looking at our sources of revenue, income tax continued its several-year run of increases. We saw income tax receipts increase 3.3% in 2023, and that was on the heels of, I believe, around a 4.5% increase in 2022. When compared to 2022, all of our sources of revenue increased an aggregate of 5.4%, really driven by two things, income tax and interest income. As the councilman noted earlier, if you take away interest earnings, then all of our other sources of revenue that are not income tax only grew by less than 1%. So really benefiting by the combination of our significant cash on hand and the relatively high interest rates, at least when looking in the last 10 or so years. Our expenses increased 9.7% 2023 over 2022, and this really was driven by two factors. One, the ratification of a variety of labor contracts that included wage increases for our unionized employees, and second, the end-of-year supplemental appropriation, which was around $45 million, which put funds into a variety of strategic priorities. And I would just make a note to sort of follow on the point made by Councilman Bishop earlier. Interest income is a tricky line item to focus on. It's one that we really can't anticipate to increase going forward, and that's for two primary reasons. One, we will continue to spend down the cash. A lot of this is driven by the federal money that we receive that hasn't yet been spent. And so as we spend that money, our pot of funds earning interest will decrease. And then as the Fed continues to tame inflation, we do expect interest rates to go down gradually. And the combination of those two factors will likely lead to reduced interest earnings over time. Continuing to talk about 2023 in review, and this was hinted at earlier during the mayor's presentation, in the general fund, our net staffing levels declined by 150 employees.
Page are you on, if I may ask, Mr. Chairman?
He is watching, he's doing the presentation that we had the other day. The pages are not numbered, but he's in 2023 year in review. If you go to your presentation, you should be able to see it there.
Is that the one that Joe Teicher gave us?
This the one that you had
Well,
last
yeah, I
Friday,
got it
yes.
here in front of me. So where is it, the expenditures general fund at the top title, or is it the carryover balance we're at? Okay, I don't know if I
Page
had
is
that.
We are on
Page 8. Yeah. The top bullet is net staffing levels decline.
2023 in review general fund is the title. With net staffing levels being the first point.
Okay, I got it. Thank you.
Thank you, through the chair. So in 2023, our net staffing levels declined by 150 employees in the general fund. We were able to hire 369 new employees, but that was offset by 519 departures. We also, for 2023, received a clean financial audit for our fiscal year 2022 financial statements. And by clean, I mean the auditor of state had no material comments in its review of our 2022 financial statements, which is a great accomplishment, and kudos to the city controller and his staff and financial reporting and control. And then finally, we did have two debt issuances in 2023. One was a $63 million new money general obligation bond issuance to provide funds for various capital improvement projects. And the second was a $40.2 million refinancing of the Cleveland Browns Stadium bonds that were initially issued in 1998. So looking at the 2024 proposed budget, first kind of just focus on the numbers. We are anticipating revenues of $779.3 million, anticipating expenses of $778.6, which gives us that structural balance of $616,000. We have a total of 4,600 budgeted employees in the general fund. If you take the salaries and wage plus benefits plus training and other travel, I believe, line items, and add those up, divide that by 4,600, the number of full-time employees, we have a per employee cost of $119,000. And I thought it would also be helpful to highlight the healthcare costs, which remain a significant component of our general fund expenses. And that is just looking at the general fund share of the healthcare costs is $81.8 million, which comes out to 10.5% of our general fund expenses. So looking at some items that were new in this year's budget book and in the process for developing the budget, and just our unusual circumstances that we have, the first being the 27th pay period. It's an anomaly for employers that pay every other week as opposed to on set dates. And so every 11 years you have this extra pay period. We normally have 26 pay periods, but in 2024 we have 27. Looking at the budget book itself, we have included the organizational charts, which are new. We have the letter from the finance director, which is new, and I hope, the purpose there was to provide some more context around the financial operations of the city and the economic conditions in which we operate, and I hope that was a helpful addition to the book. We have streamlined the staffing tables. We have, as has been discussed quite a bit already today, the vacancy pool. And then in terms of process, we held a series of community budget meetings in November and December in an effort to glean from members of the community what was important to them when it came to budgetary priorities, and to essentially provide a little more transparency and understanding about the budget and the process for developing the budget. And then finally, as you all know, because you participated in them, during the fall, Council held a series of operational oversight hearings for the various divisions. I think that had a lot of purposes. One was, at least connected to this process, was to give us a venue in which Council could conduct these oversight hearings of the divisions. We could then, on the administration side, hear what was on the minds of Council and work as a way almost to have the reconciliation process happen ahead of time, as opposed to condensed into a few-day period, and took Council requests, and as you'll see as we get later in the presentation, incorporated several of those requests into the mayor's estimate itself. So with respect to the 2024 proposed budget in the general fund, I want to take a moment to talk about staffing, and we'll do kind of public safety uniform personnel and then everybody else. So when looking at uniform personnel, and that's uniformed police officers, firefighters, and paramedics, we have 2,411 budgeted positions among those three entities. Within that are 207 vacancies, and we anticipate cadet recruiting of 180 in police, 40 in fire, and 30 in EMS. Now looking to the rest of the general fund, we have total 372 budgeted vacancies out of a total of 2,189 budgeted positions, and then we can breaking those down by branch of government. In the judicial branch, we have 426 budgeted positions and 71 vacancies. In the legislative, 61 positions and 2 vacancies. And then in the executive, 1,720 positions and 299 vacancies. Now, looking at the executive side, there are 125 of those 299 are in the vacancy pool that we have discussed, which leaves 174 in the various divisions on the executive side. Total vacancies in the divisions, including judicial and legislative, is 247. In this proposed budget, we also make a variety of targeted investments as proposed to council, including the 12% wage increases for police officers that were negotiated last year and approved by council in the fall. Also provides funding for full-time security at the neighborhood resource and recreation centers, which is an increase from part-time staffing there. We've added approximately $3.7 million, I believe, of funding for the tree damage sidewalk program, which I know is a program that is popular and has long been underfunded in prior budgets. We've added additional staff in the Department of Economic Development so that the department has the resources to provide more targeted neighborhood support in its work to grow the city's economy. And then finally, we've added funding to the councilmatic capital repair funds so that each ward has at least $150,000 in its ward-based account. And those last 4 items that I just walked through were the direct result of council engagement following the operational oversight hearings and as part of council requests to the administration for inclusion in the mayor's estimate. Also spent some time focusing specifically on the Division of Police. In this budget, we have a personnel number of 1,350 uniformed officers. And as of the last pay period of 2023, which is the number I'll use in this discussion because those are the numbers that are reflected in the budget book. We had 1,169 uniformed personnel, which would leave us with 181 vacancies in the division. This is, as we went over on Friday in the retreat, it's really important to view that number in the context of the optimal staffing figures that the division has given us as part of the process. So right now, with the 12-hour shifts, the optimal staffing number for patrol officers is 449. We have 383, which leaves a 66 officer gap. On the sergeant side, so we have management working with the patrol officers, the optimal staffing number is 40. We have 30 presently, which leaves a 10 sergeant gap there. So looking at this table, we are 76 uniformed officers when looking at basic patrol away from the optimal staffing level, which is more than adequately provided for with the 181 vacancies that are in the budget book. In addition to getting to optimal staffing for basic patrol, this vacancy number that's in the budget would also enable the division to augment the specialized units and or add more to basic patrol above that optimal number, which would mean there's 105 additional officer positions on top of what's needed to get to the optimal number that the division in its judgment could deploy as needed to provide for the public safety. I think it's also important to note that this budgeted number would enable the division to grow its uniformed personnel by 15% above current staffing, and it reflects a 6% increase against last year's budget, which as reflected in dollars is $12.9 million.
On the point, Mr. Chairman.
Councilman, can I put you down on the schedule after if you write down, because I got other people that also had questions, okay?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Looking to the sinking fund and our debt obligations, we have total outstanding general obligation bonds of $395.6 million, total outstanding subordinate lien income tax bonds of $360 million. We have $5.4 million of outstanding police and fire pension bonds, and then $40.2 million of stadium bonds. Our 2024 total debt service for these bonds that I just provided an overview of is $92.1 million, and that gives us a total outstanding principal amount of $801.3 million. Looking ahead to our expected bond issuances, as I noted earlier, we have water pollution control, which are already authorized. We anticipate the short-term debt program for the airport, We also anticipate our normal annual general obligation bond issuance to provide funding for various purpose capital improvements. And then we do have a core city economic development bond issue from 2014 that presently is in a direct placement, and that will need to be refinanced this spring. And depending on the structure of that, we'll be coming back to council for authorization. With respect to the police and fire pension bonds that remain, the final payment is this year, so those bonds will go away, fortunately, in 2024. And then the stadium bonds mature in 2028. Then the rest of the presentation is that you have is the charts showing our revenue and expense history going back to 2014. I think really, as you see, we try to normalize the data so that we're taking out any federal aid that we've received over the last several years that has run its way through the general fund, so that we can have a more apples to apples comparison of our revenue and expense history since 2014. And essentially what you see is, other than 2020, which was obviously an anomaly of a year, our revenues have slowly increased, our expenses have slowly increased. And on the final slide, our carryover balance really since 2019 has been pretty static, save for 2021, which had a spike because of the use of revenue recovery that didn't get spent until 2022. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Director, just one question for me before I turn it to my colleagues. How much are we expected to bond out this year? I know last year was about 48 million, and it looks like you did about 63, but how much are we expected to bond out for capital projects this year?
To the chairman, last year's bond issuance was 63 million for our general obligation bonds, and we're aiming at about the same amount this year.
So about another 63. Okay. I know I asked you this question, but I want to make sure I ask this for the listening public. If this council moves to pass a TIF district, that will not affect our ability to issue bonds, will it?
It will not.
Okay. All right, because that's one of the things that you and I talked briefly about before as well. All right, Councilman Chris Harsh, Councilman Joe Jones, Councilman Mike Polinsik, and Councilman Kerry McCormick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to the director, I'm still trying to understand the page on the proposed budget general fund staffing levels. And I guess I'll just explain my confusion, and maybe you can just straighten it out for me. Ignoring the public safety uniformed personnel and just looking at the general fund excluding uniformed personnel, vacancies are split between divisions in the vacancy pool, with 247 in divisions and 125 in the vacancy pool, which makes 372 vacancies, which is the number in the bottom right corner, which is also the summation of the judicial, legislative, and executive vacancies, but yet the budgeted positions are to the left of that. I guess what I'm confused about is the 125 vacancy pools, where are they indicated on the table below? Are those all in executive? And so therefore there's only 174 vacancies in executive that aren't part of the pool?
Through the chair, yes.
So those budgeted vacancies then aren't the addition of all the departmental specific vacancies throughout the book? In other words, if I go through the book and look at every department that's got vacancies listed in the book, there's like 5 in building and housing, right? Those add up to 174. Add the 125 pool, and that gets you to the 299 executive.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Got it. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you, Councilman Harsh. Councilman Joseph Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. To our CFO, first let me congratulate you on the bonds. It's always good to know that we're managing our credit card, and the various agencies have upgraded us as it relates to our bonding work here in the city of Cleveland, as well as paying off debt. Last year, talking about the bonds and paying off debt, there was a possibility that we could have went to bonds, but we use general funds. Do you, or can you recall where we would have spent that money, where we would have normally had to use bonds?
Through the chair, that was not the case in the general fund. It was the divisions of water and water pollution control who used cash on hand to pay for capital projects as opposed to issuing debt. But in the general fund, the vast majority, any of the major capital work we did outside of ARPA-related spending was done through our bond issuance.
And those bond insurances, so that's also repaid up out of those sub operations, or is it paid out of the general fund?
Through the chair, Division of Water pays its expenses, pollution control pays its expenses, et cetera.
I see. Did we ever use any bond money for, which we would have to use the general fund to make payments?
Through the chair, could you clarify?
Is there any payments that we're using general fund dollars to pay back our bond issuances?
Through the chair, yes. So the way our general bond ordinance works, the money necessary to pay our debt is captured before it ever even hits our bank account by the trustee. So we use income tax, property tax to pay back our principal and interest on our debt. And so that is money that would otherwise hit the general fund if it wasn't used to pay the principal and interest on our debt.
I see. And the cash in the bank, how much cash do we have readily available in the bank?
Through the chair, we have our unencumbered cash is the 46 million figure that we carried over into 2024 from 2023.
And federal stimulus, how much do we have left of that funding cycle?
Through the chair, I don't know off the top of my head. The vast majority of that has been legislated. So if it's still sitting there, that it's just waiting to be spent.
And on this budget here, you're showing that we're balanced with both revenues and expenditures?
Through the chair, yes.
Mr. Chairman, no further questions for CFO. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mike Polinsky, Councilman McCormick, and Spencer.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and to the director and his team. Briefly, take us to the income tax, your projections for income tax this year.
Through the chair, in this budget, we are projecting 2.75% growth in income tax, which is the historic average going back to 2000.
Okay. And so, going back to what date?
2000.
Okay. My own personal belief, and I follow financial market, I believe you're off. I believe it's going to be more around 3.5. That's my read. And I'm looking and I'm reading other projections and people who are advocating and talking about different finances. So again, I want to state that for the record. I believe you're underestimating the income tax collection. So I'll let that be said. I hope I'm right. And if I'm wrong, I'm sure you're going to point it out to me. But I think it's going to be around 3.5 in that vicinity. The issue, going back to your, find the page here, on the sinking fund. The total stadium bonds outstanding, you indicated mature in 2028. So after 2028, we have no indebtedness as it pertains to Cleveland Brown Stadium, correct?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay. Between now and 2028, do we have a list, do you have a list of capital repairs we have to make?
Through the chair, there is, I don't believe it's done yet, but every 5 years we engage an engineering firm to
Right.
assess the stadium.
Yeah.
I know that we started that in 2023. I'm not sure if it's completed
Yeah.
and if we've received it. That study kind of informs what is to come over the next several years. And then what actually gets done is based on our work with the team and their prioritization of the requests.
Okay.
To make sure that the stadium is safe.
So I'll make the request to the chair. I'd like to have what repairs, because I can remember when we did that. I'd like to know what repairs have been made and what repairs between now and 28 still have to be made as a part of that package that we agreed to.
Ms. Saban, can we get a follow-up on that and a clarification? Because I believe the last one that was done is in 2020. And I know that by law, the council president is supposed to get a copy of that report.
Right.
But I found out that the last one was done almost like 4 years ago.
Right.
So I'm not sure if there's an updated one, but we'll follow up.
It's every 5 years under the lease that we have to do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Okay. So I think that's important for us to understand, because if we do not have a, should there be no tenant there after 2028 or after that point, period of time, then we have to look at the big picture as it pertains to that facility. So I need to get that information. We all need to get that information, excuse me. We had talked about various items and issues when you were over here, and I appreciate always not only you coming over, but I also want to state for the record the report that Guy Gomansky had done for us. He's done an excellent job for us. So again, Mr. Chairman, we hope that we can continue that in some way, shape, or form with whoever else is going to fill that role in the future, because it's been very helpful to us as we go forward. To the director, you mentioned about, you touched on the police budget and staffing. And so, again, you indicated that there's about 70, you still have to fill about 76 positions, correct, to beef up basic patrol, correct?
Through the chair, based on the information provided to us by the Division of Police, we're 76 away from their optimal staffing number.
Okay. Well, I guess I would disagree with that, because I don't believe 76 officers are going to do it based on what I'm hearing at our neighborhood meetings and what I'm hearing from my colleagues. So again, I heard what the mayor said at the table when he made his presentation. But I'd like to hear what your comments are with regard to ramping up the Division of Police. I believe it's critical. I believe we are at a critical juncture in this city's history. No one around this table and no one family member that I'm aware of was around here in 1915. And that's where we're at.
My dad was.
And the division of, is he still around?
No.
Okay. I'm talking about who's still present, walking among us. So we're at 1915 levels, which none of us have ever experienced before. And we're hearing it about, traffic. We're hearing it about basic patrols and da-da-da-da-da-da. But the mayor said it's a priority. It's his number one priority. And I'm trying to find out from your perspective, what has been your lobbying effort with the Department of Public Safety to aggressively fill these open slots? I mean, because this got to be a team approach here. I heard what the mayor said, but I want to hear from his staff as well. Is that permeating down through the ranks, how critical these positions are?
Through the chairman and the councilman, I can tell you that this issue occupied the majority of my time from July until November, as I was leading the negotiations with the CPPA and FOP
Okay.
on the wage increases, the changes to the cadet pay, the signing bonus, the move to the 12-hour shifts. There was a lot going on there, but ultimately, two fundamental goals: trying to make do with what we have. And so the 12-hour shifts is really just an effort to recognizing that staffing 3 shifts is really, really hard. And we did not have the personnel to do it effectively. And so going to 2 shifts dramatically reduces the burden of providing full staff at all times. And then we knew that to ever have a police force of the size that we want, we first had to stop the attrition of folks who are already in uniform for the city of Cleveland. And that is where the pay increases came into play, is that, we saw officers leaving to go to suburban police departments, to go to Columbus, to go to RTA, to go to Cleveland State, not because they didn't like being a Cleveland police officer, but they were leaving $10, $15, $20,000 a year on the table.
Yes.
Which over a 25-year career compounds into an incredible amount of money.
Okay.
And so we negotiated these significant wage increases, which now that they're in place will serve as probably the best recruitment tool we have. Is that
Okay.
we can say to potential cadets, you're going to make more money here than you will at this department, at that department.
Okay, and so tomorrow, obviously, is public safety, and we'll get into it in greater detail. But in your projections, you projected there's 181 vacancies as of now in the division. If you would go back at the budget we passed in 2022, 2023, obviously, there's substantial more vacancies. And we only hired 21 officers last year. Last year we lost 165 retired. So unless there is a full court press from the administration, we're not even going to come close to filling those positions. That's been a major concern of the council president in his discussions with me, because I'm giving you guys the benefit of the doubt, because it's still early yet, but I have not seen any substantial improvement by going in the street to the 12-hour shifts. Now, I'm hope that there will be a change in that, but right now, on February 20th, I have not seen any substantial improvement in police visibility, traffic enforcement, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So again, time will tell as we head into spring, are we going to see those significant improvements and changes? So on that note, Mr. Chairman, I have obviously questions for tomorrow when safety is before us, but major concerns. And again, I will touch briefly on the polling. You heard the comments today. You heard the comments directed to the mayor about the polling. I don't see it working. I don't see it working. I think it's a novel approach, very novel, but unless you fill critical positions, what you will wind up at the end of the year is your pool, and we're going to not have the kind of service delivery we want. I'll end it at that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Have Councilman Kerry McCormick and then Councilwoman Jenny Spencer.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director, for the presentation. I just have one brief question, and this is kind of posed to us and the Director. On the council capital repairs, the line item is get the account up to 150. The challenge, once again, with that is, let me give you a fresh example. I have a $60,000 street calming program for Ward 3 that we've gotten the quote from the city, working closely with the mayor's administration, but that number isn't going to show up anywhere on my official encumbered books, even though, for my purposes, from a budgeting perspective, it's spent. It's eligible expense, it's running through traffic, so I guess the challenge is every year I come back to this, because we have no real system to incorporate encumbered versus committed and all of that, that's why I just advocate for a lump sum regardless of what the member's balance is, I guess is where I'm getting to that.
And just to let you know, we've had that conversation briefly already.
Okay.
And that's
And
something
I just
that
wanna
we're
flag
going
that.
to be having, because it's not fair to the council members that have been spending those dollars down versus the ones who have not been spending those dollars down. And that's something
Yeah.
that we need to have a conversation. But the lump sum is something that we want to think through.
Yeah.
But we have had that conversation.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Mr. President, but again, also for the folks that are spending, but it's not encumbered technically yet.
Right.
There's a breakdown there, so that's just my point.
Yeah,
Thank you.
can we put a pin in that? Because I want to make sure that we revisit that and have a robust conversation about that. Because I see it both ways. People that have been, accumulating dollars, and then people that also, have unencumbered dollars that have not hit the books yet. But we have that conversation. And Ms. Saban and Ms. Oden Martins, if y'all could make sure that that's one of the follow-up questions we'll have with them, okay? All right. Anything else, Councilman? All right. Councilwoman Jenny Spencer.
Thank you, Council President. Okay, a few questions this afternoon through the chair to our finance director. On the slide related to sinking fund and debt service, can you clarify what SLITS stands for?
Yes, through the chair, it's subordinate lien income tax bonds, and we generally issue those. So, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds, but we have the ability to issue general obligation debt up to a certain amount without a public vote. The city has, for all of its history, tried to do that, and when we can't do that, we issue subordinate lien income tax bonds, which are subordinated to our general obligation bonds. So they're in the event of a catastrophe and we had to decide who was going to get paid first, our general obligation bondholders would be paid before any of our bondholders that have subordinate lien income tax bonds. These don't count against our 10 mil debt limit.
Okay, this is great. This is great. So to clarify through the chair to you, Director, when are these subordinate lien income tax bonds typically issued?
So we'll do, anytime we're planning to do a bond issuance, we'll figure out where we sit in our 10 mil limit. And it's basically, the 10 mil limit is 1% of the assessed value of the jurisdiction. And if we have room within that 10 mil limit, we'll issue general obligation bonds. If we do not have room, based on the current assessed value and what's outstanding, you have to look at also what the county has outstanding, what the library, the port, they're overlapping entities that have a claim on the same inside millage that we do. So when we do not have room to issue general obligation bonds, we'll issue subordinate lien income tax bonds. So I think the last time we did subordinate lien income tax bonds was 2021 because we did not have capacity under our general obligation bond issuance.
Thank you. And if council wish to have more detail about the various bonds and when they were issued, is that available? Is that in the budget book? Through the chair.
Through the chair, there's information in the budget book. There's also in our annual consolidated financial report a detailed listing of every bond issuance, when it was issued, what the purpose was, the total amount, and what kind of bond issuance it is.
Thank you. I will look in the budget book, and if need be, I'll ask our research staff for assistance to get the longer list. I think that would be of interest. But needless to say, through the chair, this year, no subordinate lien income tax bonds are anticipated, only a GO bond issuance.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to actually make a comment through the chair to you, Director, which is I really appreciated the administration's efforts to do the public budgeting meetings this year. I thought that was, I know they started last year actually in Ward 12 with Councilwoman Moore. And I think, I think all of these efforts are really important. I want to commend my colleagues as well, my council colleagues, for co-hosting various meetings last week. I think we all collectively really need to show the public that they are invited to take part in the people's budget. And I think we can all agree that we should be in we desire to be in a continuous improvement program year over year about how many people are engaging, showing up. I thought Councilman Slife had a stroke of brilliance having the budget meeting at the same time as his senior lunch, Valentine's Day lunch at Gunning. I'm sure they loved that on Valentine's Day. I wish I had been there. All that to say, I think that these things are really important, and I appreciated the administration's efforts. So two questions related to that. First, through the chair, I guess a few questions. Do you anticipate bringing those back this year? And yes.
Through the chair, yes.
Okay. Could council get more, I feel like the more advance notice, the better. So for example, through the chair, we put out, a number of us put out newsletters, and print newsletters that go to every single household. It's a really nice, we all take advantage of mailings, but ours are pretty regular and easy to anticipate. This would have definitely been in my newsletter if we just hit that deadline a little sooner. Could we work collectively or work with your staff to get those on the books or know when they're being scheduled as soon as possible?
Yeah, through the chair, yes. And I think, one takeaway from this year was we should maybe think a little more critically about the venues that we use to sort of meet people where they're ordinarily going. We had, Happy Dog is maybe an outlier, easy to attract people when there are good
Yeah.
hot dogs and beer.
Ward 15?
But, other venues like that, other sort of places across the city where people convene sort of naturally, and we probably in our interest to meet them there as opposed to, if people aren't normally going to this rec center or this place, sort of forcing them out of their normal routines into this other location may not be the most successful way to meet people where they are and share information with them.
I think that's a worthy effort to explore. Asking those questions is awesome. I would say to that, though, that was part of my next question, which is I know we haven't gotten to your budget yet, so I don't want to be out of sequence, but I think providing a meal or making it like clear that if you show up, you don't have to worry about cooking dinner tonight, whatever that might be. There might be other ways. I actually liked them being in our rec centers in the sense of I like to get people into our, we want to get people into our rec centers. But I think there's different ways to do it. But all that to say, I think I can see this effort needing to come from both the executive and legislative branches to get more Clevelanders involved in the budgeting process. And just want to express my support, and I'm sure other colleagues have that same sentiment. So my last question about that would be, notwithstanding the conversation about where they might occur, I think part of the challenge is also geographic proximity. So even if you choose the perfect spot, if we're only picking 5, or I think it was 4, one got snowed out maybe or something, citywide, that still leaves large swaths of the city that we can't touch. So through the chair, would the administration consider increasing the number of overall meetings in addition to thinking creatively about budgeting for them and or locations?
Through the chair, yes.
Okay. I'm offering myself up to help in any way. I'd love to bring one back to Ward 15. All right, I'm putting that out there. Thank you again for doing that, and look forward to collective conversations about the people's budget as we continue the process this year and going into next year. My last question through the chair is related to the vacancy pool, and just wanted to clarify a question I asked during our morning session during the mayor's transmittal. There's sort of a bright line between uniform personnel and then staffing excluding uniform personnel. There's a little bit of a fuzzy piece, though, which is through the chair. The question would be, are there public safety positions within the vacancy pool that are not uniformed, if that question makes sense?
Through the chair, the answer is yes.
The answer is yes. Yeah. Okay. So I think when we come to, I don't know what the nature of those might be, but I think when we come to public safety, that might be something we want to explore a little bit further. I think with that, I will yield, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, seeing no other questions from the Finance Director's statement, Ms. Sure, Ms. Moore.
I apologize. I didn't know where to put this, and I just had a really small one for you, Finance Director. I was looking through the beginning of the budget book, like sort of the introductory pages, and on page, hold on, I have so many papers over here already. 5, there's a list of the specific policies that develop the budget book, and there's sort of a little explanation of each: balanced budgets, modified accrual accounting methodology, internal accounting controls, yearly audits. And then there's a last bullet point called rescue fund policy, but no description. I was just wondering what that referred to and what broadly that category meant in this context. Through the chair.
Through the chair. I believe that is alluding to the general policy that was mentioned earlier in the discussion about ensuring that we're not using these one-time rescue funds to support our day-to-day operations.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Sabin, can you read the office of the mayor? And for those of you who are in our listening public and council, we're going to do office of the mayor, city council, and the clerk, landmarks, Board and Buildings Housing Standards, Board of Zoning Appeals, City Planning Commission, Aging and Law. We plan on trying to get through all of those because remember, we are strictly talking about the budget. So if you could, please read that Office of the Mayor.
Page 49, Office of the Mayor, Mayor Justin M. Bibb. Page 50, Salaries and Wages, 2023 unaudited, $1,794,291. 2024 budgeted, $2,617,362. Page 51, total expenditures, 2023 unaudited, $2,532,435. 2024 budgeted, $3,715,853. Staffing, end of December 2023, 18. Budgeted 2024, 27. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chief. Any remarks? All right,
No,
just
sir.
a couple of questions. It looks like 500,000 that the mayor had last year that basically you did not spend 500,000. Is that about right?
Through the chair, that sounds right.
How did you reallocate those dollars and where did you have any thought process when we did the transfer ordinance?
Through,
Did we transfer any of that money out or did we leave it in there? So
through the
we-
chair, I'd have to confirm. I
Okay,
believe
we could
transferred
always
out.
look at the transfer ordinance, but when you have that carryover, just always want to make sure that we understand where it went. Also, just want to make sure, there's one other question below the line. So you have, once again, 2022, you had about a 48,000 travel budget. And 2023, it looks like you had an actual of about 93,000. What is that? How do we justify that? How does that pan out?
To the chair, the travel line item for the specific travel line item was $43,312 for the mayor's office in 2023, which is compared to 2022, which was
Okay.
$47,433.
That's the other one. Okay. All right. Got it. All right. That's all I had. And I will now move to any questions. And I have Councilman Casey, Councilman Polisic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, I see that the full-time permanent has increased from unaudited from 2023 to 2024 by almost 800,000, but you're budgeting for 4 less people. Well, I'm sorry, the full-time is 4 less people.
Through
But
the,
the overall, I see the overall is 1 more person, but 1 more person's not making 800,000 out of the mayor's office, and I don't believe there's union people
No.
in the mayor's office.
so through the chair, yeah, we had 18 full-time staff in the mayor's office as of the end of the year. We have 23 total budgeted, so that's 5 vacancies, and those vacancies existed throughout a chunk of the year. And so it's the vacancies plus what might be some modest kind of cost of living adjustments that are applicable to the rest of the city hall employees. And the 27th pay, I'm sorry, yeah. So I think this is a good, since we're in the first division, all of the full-time salary line items in every division are going to be elevated as a result of the 27th pay, which is a little misleading because, you know, we don't have there wasn't a 27th pay last year.
Right.
But we have to budget for it in this year's budget book.
So, Mr. Chairman, to the director, we'll see that throughout the whole book, a good number of increases in full-time salary. And the explanation is going to be because of the 27th pay, so it's all going to go up. Okay, thank you.
If
All right,
I could add to that really quick, we also implemented the 2% increase that happens in April. So that's also another increase.
Thank you. All right. Councilman Mike Polisic.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues. So here we go. This is the best one to start off here. So now I need a magnifying glass. I feel like Inspector Clouseau here. So if I look at page 49, under the org chart, how many, I don't know how many people are working here. Is there, how many press secretaries, how many graphic designers, how many major projects, a person, who's doing strategy, who's transit mobility? I mean, how come there's no positions listed? No number of staff people assigned. This is what I knew was going to happen, and this is the best place to start it right now with the office of the mayor. Go look. You cannot compare this budget to what we did in 2023 as it pertains to staffing levels. And I don't get it. I don't know why you guys did this.
Hold on 1 second. Councilman Polinsky, Councilman Casey would like to have a point. Would you allow him a point?
Yeah,
on
yes,
this?
I know.
Just real quick,
Thank you.
with the org chart, I think there's 31 positions, and then you have 27 budgeted for. So on that point, can you explain why we have more positions in the org chart than we're having budgeted?
Yeah, through the chair. So I think a couple of things. One, an org chart is not necessarily going to line up with the budget because there could be someone who is split between two organizations and could show up in both org charts, but for budget purposes sits in one place. Two, in this, particularly in the mayor's office, there are several people, and if you have the color version, it's color coded to indicate grant funded versus general fund, and there are a variety of grant funded individuals in the mayor's office. So I think what we intended to do with the org chart was to provide a snapshot of the organization itself. It's not necessarily going to be the case that that snapshot is going to perfectly align with the budgeted numbers just because of the operational realities that, someone might be on two different budgets, someone might be sitting operationally in the mayor's office but paid for in a different budget. So this is really intended to give an idea of the operations, not necessarily the budget.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, to the director, are you able to tell us or provide to us at some point who's working in the mayor's office and paid for by another department or division?
Through the chair, I don't know off the top of my head. I know Austin Davis is,
Yes.
I think, split between the mayor's
Okay.
office and law,
Yeah.
as he's an assistant director of law. And then I would also note over the weekend, we sent the payroll information by division. So you all have the roster of employees in each division as of, by civil service classification as of the last pay period of 2023.
Is this the sheet you're talking about?
Yes.
That I had color coded?
Yes. That's
It is? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay, but again, Mr. Chairman, to the director, for a graphic press secretary, you have one?
Through the chair. I mean, for the mayor's office, this is easy. Each one of these boxes
Yes.
is one person.
One person. So, but we don't know what their pay range is, do we? But based on a previous budget, we were able to know what their pay range was.
Through the chair, you have their specific salaries in the spreadsheet that I sent over the weekend.
One, over the weekend?
That's that sheet right there. That's same
Yes.
budget. Yeah, that's that.
But there's no salaries on here.
No, this is the councilman, but we just get where's the one? Can we get the printed one that they send out with the salaries on it? We'll get policy staff to
Okay,
print it
but
out.
Mr. Chairman, and again, we're going to go through this in every department, every division. And I'm hoping that we draw the line in the sand this year and say this ain't going to happen next year. I mean, there's no call for this. For God knows how long I can recall, we were always able to see the salary range, how many people were assigned the staff-specific title, et cetera. Now, you can't figure out heads from tail here, and sometimes I think somehow they don't want us to figure out here who's working where and what they're making. And it's so frustrating that I got to use a magnifying glass on the org chart to figure out how many people are working. And in this case, no indication as it pertains to the number. I'll leave it at that, Mr. Chairman. I'm not happy with that process at all. Thank you.
All right. Next person I have is Councilman Anthony Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree with Councilman Polenzek. We should not get this again like this. But through the chair to the director, just a couple items on page 50. Under other travel and professional dues, we went from 43 to 12.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at.
And we're jumping up to $55,000. What is the difference attributed to?
Through the chair to the councilman, I think we're anticipating a bit more travel, particularly to Washington, D.C., as the mayor and other staff are engaged in advocacy with the federal government to bring resources back to the city. The mayor is also the chair of a committee for the U.S. Conference of Mayors, which will require some additional travel. And so that is the explanation for the increase in the travel budget for 2024 versus what was spent in 2023.
Thank you. Through the chair to finance director, how much of this travel is attributed to the mayor versus the other staff?
Through the chair, I don't know exactly. I would say the majority is attributable to the mayor.
Okay. And as a point of, not a point, but as a request, can we get, I'd like to ask for a breakdown of the travel expenses and who the dollar amounts are attributed to. Okay. Thank you. And through the president to the finance director, I see $19,500 for this Mayors and Managers Association. We did not have that in 21, did not have that in 22, and we spent that in 23, and we're budgeting again in 24. Can you explain to us what this Mayors and Managers Association $20,000 is for?
Through the chair, it's the annual membership fee, and the reason why you did not see it in the Office of the Mayor previously is because it had been traditionally paid for out of the non-departmental division, and then last year we moved it into the mayor's office.
Okay, so we've always had that? Okay. Under contractual services to the president, under professional services, we had a sharp increase in 23. It had an additional sharp increase in budgeting for 2024. What professional services are paid out of this line item?
Through the chair, the explanation for the increase there is a contract with an organization called Collective, which
I can barely hear you.
I'm sorry. Through the chair, the explanation is there is a contract with an organization called Collective for $35,576, and that's for some communications support for the mayor's office.
So we paid a group called Collective to assist with communications.
Through the chair.
What type
that's
of work did they do, through the chair?
They do ad hoc, through the chair, sorry, ad hoc media productions. They help with State of the City presentation, stuff like that.
Okay. And so, did we budget for this in 23? And see, I can't go back and look and see what, how much did we budget for this in 2023?
The budget for 2023 through the chair was $27,656.
So we exceeded this budget. We exceeded, well, 2023 unaudited shows that we exceeded what this council budgeted for.
Through the chair, just a point of clarification, the appropriation levels are at personnel and other expenses. So within the various subline items under other expenses, the administration is able to move money around to meet whatever the needs are, and that's what happened here. So to be clear, the mayor's office did not exceed its appropriation levels in the appropriation ordinance for 2023.
But you did, though. I mean, we can look at it in a different way, but we had a budget amount. The unaudited amount for 23 exceeded that. Now, whether we moved it around or whether we went over and we made it up on the back end.
Through the chair, I want to be clear because this has real legal ramifications. The mayor's office did not exceed its budget in 2023.
I'm not talking about his budget, I'm talking about the line item.
So that line item, a budget is as much science as it is art, and there are needs that arise throughout the year that we couldn't anticipate, and that's why we have our budgetary control a level above these individual line items, because if our budgetary control was at these specific line items, we'd be every day amending the budget with city council, and operations would grind to a halt.
Or we just operate within the budget we set, right?
Which we did.
Okay, so apples, oranges, right? And it has been floated that this council should budget by line item instead of the way we've been doing it. And Mr. President, I would say that that's probably something we need to consider as we continue to go through this process, and not make it up on the back end or just shift things around because the overall budget of the department allows it without council having input. I'm interested to see, thank you for the young lady, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name, through the chair.
It's Nicole Gallagher.
Okay, Nicole, thank you for the explanation. And under materials and supplies, under special event supplies, we went from, $7,200 was an actual for 22, $4,100 for 2023 unaudited. Now we're budgeting $16,750. Can you explain to me, Director, to the President, what is the reason for the sharp increase and what revenue source is being used to pay for these special event supplies?
Through the chair, the revenue source would be the general fund.
Just the general fund, no sub funds, no other, nothing else? Okay. And what are we doing with, what are the special event supplies and why this such an increase?
Through the chair, I'm not sure exactly. I'm imagining signage, other items that would be needed to hold events that the mayor is hosting.
So, Mr. President, to our staff, can we get some sort of itemized listing of what these dollars are used for under special event supplies and why the request for such a increased amount? And also, through the President, if the administration can share with us anything they anticipate using these dollars for. Obviously, they have something on their mind if they're going from $4,100 to $16,750.
Ms. Saban, do you have that question? Okay.
Thank you. And lastly,
If you could.
Mr. Chair, under our comparison staffing levels, under the part-time section, you had budget in 2023 for part-time positions. You had 0. You're asking for the 4 more again. What's the 4 part-time positions, and what do they consist of?
Their classifications would be special assistant to the mayor, and they would support government relations and communications and the mayor's Southeast Side efforts.
And how many special assistants do we already have? Under the FTE side?
Through the chair, we have, well, if anyone who works in the mayor's office who is not an executive assistant to the mayor is a special assistant to the mayor. Those are the only 2 classifications that exist in the mayor's office. So we have, let's see.
So all of them?
1, 2,
Except
3. We have, through the chair, we have 3 EAs to the mayor in the mayor's office. We have the chief of communications, chief of education, and the deputy chief of staff. The chief of staff is the secretary to the mayor classification, and then everyone else in the mayor's office that is a full-time general fund employee is a special assistant to the mayor.
Gotcha. So, for example, this chief of ED, that's Epstein.
Through the chair, that's correct.
And you said EA, but I thought it was SA, special assistant. Or what do you call them? It says EA in the book.
Chief Epstein is not in the mayor's office budget.
Okay. So The chief of education, that would be what, Pomeranz?
Correct.
And what's the EA?
An executive assistant, so that's like a secretary, the secretarial staff. So under the executive assistant, admin chiefs on the far right of the org chart, those four individuals are executive assistants in the more colloquial sense.
Got it.
We're stuck with the titles that are in the charter.
Okay.
They're,
So all these folks are executive assistants, and you have a whole nother group that are special assistants. Special assistants and executive assistants.
yes, and through the chair, we are stuck with the titles that exist in the civil service.
And where does the other special assistants fall under through the chair?
So anyone.
They're all over, right?
Anyone else in the mayor's office that is not a chief is a special assistant to the mayor.
Okay. All right, you need those four, right? Okay, thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. And just as a follow-up, we've always been a part of the Mayors and Managers Association. Why did we just now start to have to pay dues for $19,000?
To the chairman, we historically had paid it out of non-departmental. Last year, we
Okay.
moved it out of the mayor's office. So it's the same fee. We've always been part of it. It's now just getting paid out of the mayor's office budget as opposed to
So
non-departmental.
do you always pay that through like OML, Ohio Municipal League, and some of those other ones that we usually pay for?
Those
National
are
League
in,
of Cities and all of those?
yeah, through the chair, and those are in the non-departmental.
So
division.
all of those are non-departmental?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a big change from that 19,000. That might explain why it was there before. So if somebody wants to look, they should be able to look in 2021 or before and be able to, or 20 and 22 and before, and find that we were paying that 19,000 somewhere, right? Okay, all right.
And- Mr. Chair, I'm curious,
Councilman-
why the change? Through the chair. Why the change?
Why the change?
Through the chair, I don't recall why we made the change last year, but last year feels like a decade ago.
Okay, I mean, it's, well, just want to make sure that we understand where that was coming from. All right, and we do want to understand that increase in special events because that's almost a quadruple in expense. So if you could give us the justification, I agree with Councilman Harrison. It has to be something that justified that number. So we need to know what that is, okay? All right, no other questions regarding the mayor's office. Please move to Cleveland City Council.
Page 46, Council and Clerk of Council. Council President Blaine A. Griffin. Clerk Patricia J. Britt. Page 47, Salaries and Wages, 2023 unaudited, $4,881,755. 2024 budgeted, $5,238,791. Page 48, total expenditures, 2023 unaudited, $8,291,342. 2024 budgeted, $9,066,769. Staffing, end of December 2023, 60. Budgeted 2024, 71. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Clerk, Ms. Stiggers, welcome. Did you have any opening statements before anybody had any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to say the staff of council is categorized into clusters. We're obviously too small to be departments. In those clusters, there are currently 26 employees. In the budget, we have 2 open part-time positions and 8, I believe 8, summer intern positions. Summer interns begin May 1st and they go to August 31st. I think that's it. Anything more specific than our CFO, Vakita Stiggers, can answer. I do want to also say thank you to all of our staff, the council staff, as well as council EAs. They make it happen. And to thank the members of council for Friday's budget retreat. We learned some things and have prepared some specific information.
Great. Ms. Stiggers, you want anything to add, anything? All right. Okay, any questions for the clerk and Ms. Stickers? Yes, Councilman Hairston.
Thank you. Not a question, but I just want to say that I'm looking at this budget compared to the budget we just looked at. I mean, this body needs to not be afraid to make increases, right? Looking at what I just looked at for an office of 1 compared to an office of 17, right? This makes no sense. And I get this is you all are doing what you have to do, right? This is not a reflection of you two at all, by no means. But we need to really make some serious some adjustments here, as relates to even our professional services, what we're paying some of our staff members. Like our staff works very hard every single day, right? They field a lot of the calls that should be going across the hall that's coming to us. And they come to us because if they did not come to us, then some things just will be what they are. So, we do this every year, and this is, again, another year where we need to look at increasing our staff members' pay, who again, works as hard or harder, let me just say that, than others do. So, I hope that as we go through this process, we look at increasing our staff's pay because they are making peanuts compared to what others are making, part of the other branch here in the government, in 601 in the government here. And we cannot continue, we cannot continue that. And I'll leave it at that. So I hope that we, seriously make some changes in relation to our budget and our staffing and the needs that we have to communicate and to engage with the residents across the city of Cleveland. We've done a good job for what we have. I think we could do an even better job if we had the other resources to be able to do the work. So thank you.
Thank you.
You did a great
Councilman
job.
Starr.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Clerk, as well as council staff. And I echo some of the words and remarks that Chairman Hairston just mentioned, and I've been saying it for 2 years. I need an additional staff person. And it doesn't serve the purpose if we got to use funding that we use that we could possibly help in the community for us to fund staff positions. Like you just looked at that, if you look at the last budget, obviously from the mayor's office, obviously from the executive branch, they have all these special assistants, special staff, different positions, and then you look up and look at about the amount of 311 issues. A lot of the times our staff find themselves having to do that work. Jessica, my executive assistant, does a wonderful and great job, but from her having to help manage what I'm doing, also helping me plan my community events, also helping take all the amount of calls and log those, also being able to help schedule stuff with different departments is like one thing for pennies. But also, it just doesn't make sense that we have this much strain on a small department, and with our budget being around, I think it's 5.2 now. I think there's some things that we could possibly do and increase our budget to add different staff positions too. Let's not shortchange the work that we do, but also make it more balanced for the work that we need to do to be able to support some of our initiatives. So I would love to see us add another full-time position to every council member's office, and then just thinking for the future. We're about to go down to 15 seats. And from that 15 seats, you're going to add more residents, so there's more work. And obviously, as council members, we're not getting no increase of pay, but our staff is going to just wear down on them. And I would just love for us to really, really think about the innovative things that we could do if we have the amount of staff that we need to help us in our job and our roles.
All right, any other questions for Clerk Britt? Councilman Joseph Jones.
Mr. Chairman, just want to take this opportunity to, again, you give appreciation where appreciation is due. I think that our clerk has done a good job being our clerk. I really appreciate, sometimes you don't know what a person is going through unless you're sitting in that job and doing that job. So you've been doing a great job over the years, from one administration to the next administration, from another administration all the way back when we was colleagues. So I just think that you're doing a good job in what you do, and really appreciate your work, and I really appreciate your CFO here. And one of the things that my distinguished colleague, Mr. Starr, brought up was the possibility of, can we look, I don't know if it's this budget or we look somewhere down the line, the costs have increased. You know, I have a ward office, so those costs have increased. If I had to go anywhere else, I probably could not afford to be able to do that. So I'm like locked in, so to speak, to where I'm at. And if I wanted to improve the space, it would be very difficult for me to do that. So I know that the fund that was created for us to have an expense account was created, 40 years ago, and we haven't had an increase in at least 30 some years. And so it would be nice to see that fund being able to be increased, and then that way, at least we can be able to utilize that fund to add on to our staffing, help with adding additional funds to our executive assistants, as well as being able to offer and provide more services to the citizens we represent. So I'm not so sure how we look at that, how we tweak that, but that would be something I think that we should be looking at down the road. How do we improve that so that those council members who do have ward offices, they're there for the convenience of our citizens, so that they can walk in and have total access to us at all times. And I can say to my colleagues who do have it, they understand it, and for those who don't, it is a great service to the citizens we represent, is when we have that office where they can come in with whatever problems they got, they can come in and get them resolved. So looking at increasing that. Also, I was a proponent for increasing the pay to our executive assistants. I know that my executive assistants, God bless their souls, they have a lot of work that they have to deal with on a daily basis. And even though the rates that we pay them is, I think, $56,000, it is a difficult job. And when you look at, Mr. President, to our clerk of council, Patricia Britt, it is significant that we start looking at how we increase their pay too, and let that catch in and keep up. I believe that our executive assistants should be paid at least starting salary $60,000. The market for an executive assistant today is $85,000 to $90,000, and to capture a really good person, just like you've heard this administration that's before us talk about how difficult it is to find and get and retain good people. I submit to you that the majority of the people who left out of office left out because they got $10,000, $15,000, and $30,000 increases respectively to their salaries. So it's really difficult for me to have an experienced hand that have the capacity, the ability, and astuteness and common sense of handling our customers. And when those people come in, it's a hard task because they're upset about everything. And so you got to have someone who knows how to go in there, cool it down, calm the room, de-escalate, and resolve those issues. So I would submit, Mr. President, to our staff here and to our clerk of council, if we can look into that and see if we can do something with the budget, this year, or at least look at it for next year. And I didn't know if you had comments. Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, to the council member,
Madam Clerk.
those are all issues that we are happy to bring to the Operations Committee. The increase in the monthly expense account would be a change, an amendment to the codified ordinances. And that discussion has started in operations, and we're happy to continue to make that happen.
Okay. And again, thank you for the work you do for us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilman Starr.
Hey, just one point, Council President, and I think this might be for you or anyone at the table, just for clarification. After we go through these budget hearings, which I dislike that no director or the administration, I guess they feel like they don't want to hear our voices about our concerns is not here. I think that's the most stupidest thing ever. We hear from the residents, so they should hear it if they're not helping us. But to the point, once we get done with these budget hearings and we start talking and reconciliation, do we have the staff levels to be able to make any changes to the budget independently without the administration, or what? Because I know I only been here for 2 years and it's my third budget. It seemed as if we make our recommendations and ask them to do something when it doesn't fit well. If we have the budget now, if we wanted to see some cuts and want to see some changes, do we have the staff level to make the changes ourselves and then send it and pass it the way we think it should be? Or do we need to have a conversation and get their thoughts, which don't matter because ours don't? How does that really actually work as far as our capacity?
So a couple of things that I'll reiterate. We tried something different this year where we did operational budgets in the last quarter of last year, where everybody was able to look at how departments operated and then make recommendations. During that process, everybody got together with the council policy staff, and the areas that there were recommendations made actually got put into the budget when the administration did the budget based on the recommendations that took place before. It's not a matter of staff capacity. The challenge is getting everybody a consensus and trying to go through each department and agree on the actual line item changes that we want to do as a body is very cumbersome. So it's not that the staff capacity is getting 17 members and going through each budget and saying what we really want to do. What I've tried to get us to do process-wise is why we did the last quarter of the departmental hearings, so then we could get the information and try to make recommendations on the front end as opposed to waiting on the back end. I thought it would be good to have at least directors, which I know they're probably watching, available, because not only is it a good thing for them to hear our voice, but as you heard today, some people want to commend certain directors and tell the staff and the departments that they're doing a great job. So I think there were some pros in the operational hearings, but I think one of the cons are, as you said, I don't think everybody really got into them like they should have in the last quarter of last year. So I do want us to have some conversations, but it is very difficult for 17 members to get together and agree where we should have cuts. For example, just managing one department that I'm gonna leave nameless will probably have an equal split of who wants to support it and who wants to cut it. So that's where it gets challenging, but that's just a procedural thing.
Thank you.
Okay? All right. Okay, I do have Councilman Conwell, I think.
Yes, to the
then that's it.
finance person. I wasn't going to say nothing about it. You know, through the chair, and I'm going to echo what Mike Polisic says because it's really insulting the council. And he knows better than that. Majority, our personnel, what is it, about 65, 67%? Through the chair to not.
So you're done with council, with the council?
Yeah, council. To the finance.
Okay, so then y'all, they're done. I think Pat.
No, I don't need them.
You don't need them? Okay.
No.
So Councilman Conwell has a question for the finance director, but Pat
I
and
have
Revita,
statement
you
to
guys
say
are
to
excused, okay?
Thank you.
Sorry, because it was just.
Want to
on
thank,
council, that's why.
I want to thank the clerk and her staff,
Yeah.
Keita, and all our staff people for the work that they have done and what they've had to endure on Monday nights as well. I know some of our staff people have been afraid because they've spoke to me about concerns that they've had, and I want them to be aware that I appreciate their due diligence. I appreciate the work you all do, And I think it's pretty sad commentary when the staff of City Council, not only our staff, but staff of the mayor's office as well, has to be worried about leaving City Hall on Monday night, Mr. Chairman. I think that's outrageous. So I need to state that for the record. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. And we all appreciate the work that the clerk and the team does. Okay. All right, Councilman Conwell, back to the point you were making, and then we'll go back into the rest of the hearing.
You know, Mr. President, when you do a budget, it's really 4 elements. You look at people.
Thank you.
You know, you look at supplies, you look at equipment, and you look at money. And with the people, and matter of fact, by all of these budgets, it's the four main elements, and at least 68 to 72% of it is people. So, but you can't add the people up when you don't put next to it how much they're making. That's crazy, man. If I was at Pepsi, you know what I would do with this? I would take this budget and throw it at you until you get out of my office. You know, man. You should be putting salaries, how much people make, right next to, right next to what they make. I mean, I'm with Mike Polisic on that. Last year before that, through the chair to Councilmember Mike Polisic, we never seen it like this.
Nope.
Never seen it. I mean, it's insulting, man. It's insulting for you to give this to council and to me. You see, you know, you put, if it's 72% of the budget is the cost of labor and it's people's salaries and wages, dollars should be right next to it. Dollars should be right next to it. And then you would have how much you make. You can make from 52,000 to 78,000. There's a range there. But here you don't see that. Is it going to be like that in your pool system? Through the chair to the finance director?
Through the through the chair to the councilman, I'd just like to clarify. This was not intended to be insulting. This was not intended to remove critical information away from council as it reviews the budget. I think what's getting lost is the appropriation ordinance provides a set dollar amount for each division to spend on personnel. How the divisional leadership allocates those dollars to whatever civil service classifications are available is up to that commissioner and the director for which that commissioner works. So whether a staffing sheet includes 10 project coordinators, 5 assistant administrators, 2 administrative managers, et cetera, does not in any way impact the way in which that commissioner is going to run that division, because the commissioner is going to assess the needs of the division and hire accordingly. So the goal here was to focus the conversation more on the total resources rather than the specific positions, because the specific positions are at the discretion of the administration. Now, with respect to salaries, we've never provided salaries in the book.
Oh, they have
We had
Hold on, if we
pay-
could, everybody go through the chair,
we
please.
had pay bands, but for a lot of our classifications, I don't understand how those pay bands are particularly useful. For example, the finance director pay band is $31,000 to $204,000. It doesn't really tell me a lot.
Well, you know what?
There are the administrative manager pay band is $31,000 to $155,000. Those are not useful measures when reviewing, at least in my perspective, when reviewing a budget. Now, what we sent over the weekend has the actual salaries of every employee as of the last pay period of 2023, which I think is far more useful than these pay bands that are, tens of thousands of dollars between the low and the high. I think what we intended to do is strike a balance between providing information about these organizations, how they're structured, that's the org charts, sort of who's reporting to whom, where people are sitting, and then the total staffing, so that we could have a conversation about the resources, not the individuals, because the individuals are at the discretion of the administration. As a member of council often reminds everyone, that the hiring, the deployment is up to the administration. And so we are, the goal here was to strike a balance between transparency and creating a budget book that is more digestible for all who read it. You know, I think if you go back in prior books, I mean, we shaved off over 100 pages from the budget book this year with the various changes that we made. And it wasn't just reducing information. You know, we added these org charts. But ultimately, we're trying to create a mayor's estimate, a budget book that is more easily understandable by all who read it, members of the general public, members of the administration, members of council. And I understand that change, especially when, you know, there's been long-standing practices, is not easy and not well-liked. But I hope we can kind of get past the cosmetic changes in the book and focus the whole goal, you know, even broader than this, was in negotiating with the council president about the operational oversight hearings, having, you know, the budget hearings be very specifically focused on the money, was to make this process more effective, to set up a system in which there's operational oversight hearings where council can dig into the operations of every division. We can learn what is important and then build a budget based on what we've learned, and then have budget hearings that are solely focused on the money. Leave the operations to the directors and the commissioners, who are the ones conducting the day-to-day business of those divisions. You know, my job is to make sure that the divisions have the resources they need to do what's expected of them, but I don't have anything to say with how they spend that money. That's up to them. That's up to management.
And Councilman, let me say this. We tried to do some different stuff. We are all going to sit down with each other and assess this after this year and determine how we want to move forward. So one of the things that I would encourage all of you to do is things that you're used to or you think are valuable, like you just said, salaries and other kind of staffing counts and those kind of things. We'll have a debrief document that we'll sit down and say, here's what we would like to see moving forward.
Yeah, because, you know, Mr. President, salary is a resource. As I mentioned, you got equipment. Equipment is in here, supplies, money, which is connected to the salaries. But let me see. It's equipment, supplies, money, and it's another one I just forgot. But it's 4 that makes it up, really. And with the salary, you could do an estimate. And if I know that Gentile make $204,000, you don't have to do a pay band from $31,000 to $204,000. You can just put down the average cost is for these 4 is this amount of money. And then I know, because you know what? We have the oversight. It's us giving them the money. So we dictate that. You know, you see what I'm saying? It's not what the finance director is talking about. That's why he took it out. No. They took it out so you won't be able to look at really how much certain people are making. But if I got oversight, if I'm the funders, we are the funders, I need to know as a funder how much people are making. You know, see what I'm saying? Councilmember Mike Palencia, you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly.
You know, so you can estimate and put the average in if you don't want to put a pay band there. I've dealt with budget before you was born. So we'll discuss it. I got the boss, the wife calling me. I had to return his call real quick.
Okay. All right, seeing no other questions, we'll move to Landmarks Commission. Can you read the description, Ms. Saban or Ms. Oda Martins?
Page 61, Landmarks Commission, Secretary Daniel A. Musson. Page 63, Salaries and Wages, 2023 unaudited, $237,305. 2024 budgeted, $272,049. Total expenditures, 2023 unaudited, $321,046. 2024 budgeted, $390,145. Page 64, staffing, employees at the end of December 2023, 10. Budgeted 2024, 10. Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Director.
Through the chair, happy to answer any questions.
All right, this is pretty static. I don't have a lot of questions here. Does anybody have any questions for Landmarks? No. I will tell you that Landmarks is one of those small departments that does a great job, small but mighty. We're fortunate to have Councilwoman Gray on there. Did you want to state anything about Landmarks?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say it's been a great experience being on the Landmark Board with the staffing. I have been very well educated and engaged with the understanding of what the landmark historical districts are all across Cleveland, Cuyahoga County. And it's been a great experience for me to understand that arena. So I'm just saying that the staffing themselves, great job. The board commissioners, they are wonderful, and I just enjoy what I do there with them. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Mike Polisi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could they get us an updated list by ward of every parcel, building, et cetera, that has been landmarked? An updated list. I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair, we have it here.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, are there any more questions for Landmarks Commission? No. Councilwoman Spencer.
Again, no indication of staff.
Thank you. I think we all appreciate the service that Landmarks Commission provides to the city. Just real briefly, under contractual services, professional services is, it's small. It's a small dollar amount, but it's quite a big percentage increase. Just curious what the professional services are for Landmarks Commission.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, it's two explanations there. One is county recorder's fees, which there weren't a lot of landmarks recorded in 2023, so if you look at prior years, that number's in the thousands. And then also, the Landmarks Commission will have an AmeriCorps volunteer this year, and there's a slight funding commitment with respect to that.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay. Seeing no other questions regarding Landmarks Commission, once again, I know they're not here. Shining moment of us this year was the Jesse Owens House getting landmarks. So really just want to give a shout out to all of them in the Landmarks Department. All right, we'll move to Board of Building and Standards and Appeals.
Page 65, Board of Building Standards and Appeals, Executive Secretary Carmela Davis. Page 66, Salaries and Wages, 2023 unaudited, $152,435. 2024 budgeted, $199,244. Total expenditures, 2023 unaudited, $232,025. 2024 budgeted, $312,450. Page 67, number of employees end of December 2023, 6. Budgeted 2024, 7. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any statements or anything that you want to bring up, Director? Well, we all know that Board of Zoning Appeals is, Board of Building Standards is which one we're on now. And everybody did do an operational review. I do want to make sure we acknowledge that, Ms. Davis, and I know that we were cautious enough to try to give her a staff member last year. Her and her team are doing a great job. I want to commend them. Are there any questions regarding Board of Building Standards and Appeals? Councilwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, same question for BBS, BA, under contractual services, professional services. Looks like it's been zero in previous years. This year it's budgeted at $20,000 on page 66, if I'm seeing correctly.
Through the chair, we'll get back to you on that one. I have a note for the next item, not for that one.
Because I want to make sure Ms. Saban has the follow-up. Ms. Saban, did you hear the question that Councilwoman has? How soon can we get that follow-up, Chairman?
Today.
Okay. If we could, make sure we get that follow-up. Ms. Spencer.
And yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I think as we feel our way through this new budget process, this would just be an example of how it might be helpful to have a director in the room.
Yes,
they might
I
know the
agree.
answer to that question very spontaneously. So that's just an observation at, hour one into our budget process.
Through the chair, got it. It is for Acela Professional Development. So we are engaged in a citywide enhancement of our Acela system, in which all of the city's licenses and permits are issued. And this fee, which you don't see it in prior years, is designed to provide training for the staff of BBSA to learn how to use the new Acela system effectively.
Okay, that's important. Were you going to say something, Mr. Chair?
No, I'll wait till you finish.
Okay.
Because I just want to reiterate something.
Oh,
Go ahead.
sure. And I will just say that even though these are relatively small investments, and obviously that's a great response, it's a very worthy investment, there's a sort of across the budget book this year, there's an increase in contractual services. It looks like we'll be hearing a lot more about some of that when we come to the judicial branch. But that's just something I'm going to be keeping an eye on during our discussions this week and early next. So that's all, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to reiterate, if I could, okay? And I'm going to ask everybody if they could listen very closely. We had a caucus. We had a caucus late or probably mid-year. In that caucus, we had a very involved conversation about we wanted to do and spend more time not rushing through operational hearings. I too agree with you and agree with everybody here. And the director and I have had several conversations that it would be good to have a director here because they know their departments more than anybody. Right. However, I made an agreement to do intensive operational hearings with concurrence with all of y'all in caucus meeting in order to say we wanted to put money into the budget up front as opposed to waiting to have a discussion and then trying to rush over a 3-day period. Hence, to Councilman Starr, as well as Councilman House's statement, made it even more difficult to try to do reconciliation because we literally only had 3 days to do it. So we tried to do more input on the front end. After we go through this process, because this is changing, we will have a conversation with the mayor, myself, and the finance director on what we think worked and what we think did not work. And we will go back to what we think works and what we think doesn't work. But I just want to make sure that I reiterate and help people understand that because I'm starting to hear the grumblings about why aren't directors here and why aren't more staff members here.
That's right.
And I'm just trying to make sure that everybody understands the intent was to have complete operational hearings, which many of you around the table sat at for 10 to 15 hours, reviewing departments to say, here's where we think you should put more money into. So I just want to make it clear that this was not done without input from everybody here. This was not done in the blind or in the dark, and we were trying to be intentional because as we stated, based on the input that everybody gave to the policy committee, which I think did a great job of compiling information, we have $6.5 million worth of requests embedded in the budget. And I seen it, and we can verify that through the request that everybody has made. So I just want everybody to understand what the process entailed and what we're trying to do, what the intent was, and how we're going to review the process and see where and how we can make it better in the upcoming years. So I just want everybody to understand that, okay? Please proceed.
Is there any discussion, Mr. Chairman, on that?
If we could have that conversation in caucus. Now is not the time to do it because we are moving on looking at the budget.
Just a suggestion.
We will have caucus conversations and we will have operational hearings where we can bring all the council members in and they can go over this process and make recommendations. However, right now, we are in the appropriation process. We can discuss process around what we need to do and how we want to move forward in that operations meeting. You have my commitment that I'll work with McCormick to pull that together, okay? All right, Council Director, anything else regarding board and building standards? Anything else, Councilman Slife, regarding board of building standards and appeals?
Thank you. Then this is a similar question for BZA, which I assume is next. During the operational hearings, that was when Residents First was initially being discussed, and I think we had discussed that if Residents First were to pass, that there would be an increasing amount of pressure put on these two boards as theoretically more flows coming in because of increased enforcement. Through the chair to the chief, earlier you had mentioned that a lot of your internal discussions about the vacancy pool have centered around building and housing. Are these two boards also included in those conversations, and is there intent to increase headcounts because of Residents First?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's a good question. Yes. So I think, as we're thinking about the implementation of Residents First, we know obviously building and housing needs additional staff. And, as we get the implementation working, and we don't know yet what those other collateral needs will be in other organizations, but if we see increased workload in building standards, zoning appeals, whatever the case might be, as a result of this increased enforcement under Residents First, then the vacancy pool would be exactly the tool that we would use to provide those resources to those organizations.
Okay, thank you. So to my colleagues, we receive those agendas, and I know we often, feel that we need to attend those meetings. I think we should watch those agendas to see if they are getting busier. What I don't want is more routine things and things that aren't associated with this legislation getting bogged down because there's an increased pipeline. And I certainly don't want to find out that that's the case and then find out that it's a multi-month fix because of the hiring process. So thank you.
All right. Anything else for Board of Building Standards and Appeals?
No.
Okay, we'll move to Board of Zoning Appeals. Director, anything to add for Board of Zoning Appeals?
No, sir.
All right, do we have any questions for Board of Zoning Appeals? We all know that that's probably one of the most important agencies that we all deal with in City Hall. Are there any questions regarding BOZA? Okay, I'm sorry, Ms. Saban, please read it into the record.
Page
She's about to tell
68.
us. Please read it into the record.
Page 68, Board of Zoning Appeals, Secretary Elizabeth Kukla. Page 69, Salaries and Wages, 2023 unaudited, 162,608. 2024 budgeted, 183,643. Total expenditures, 2023 unaudited, 243,837. 2024 budgeted, 281,391. Page 70, number of employees, December 2023, 7. Budgeted 2024, 7. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, do you have anything to add regarding the Board of Zoning Appeals?
No, sir.
All right, I just want to give a shout out to Ms. Kukla and the chair and the entire team. Once again, they do a great job really working with us. They have to make some tough decisions. And I just want to make sure that they recognize that we do acknowledge and understand their love for the city, okay? I do want to make sure that there were a couple of times where it needed to be a little bit clarification with the council person. So if any message I have from Ms. Kukla and her team is just please make sure that the council person is engaged. And I'm not going to say the ones whose name it was, but there was one council person that I don't think that they were in pretty much lockstep with. And everybody's allowed to have an opinion, but they should really understand the council person's vision and point of view when they make decisions.
That's true.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. I second that.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, who are all of the?
All right. I guess I'm going to give it to the DPS chair. He can't hold it. He got to say something.
You already know. Unfortunately, it's not on this department, it's on the next one.
Okay.
Where my comments will.
No, this
will
is,
come.
the next one is the one. Okay, I got you.
The next one is the
I'll
one.
let you save your comments for that.
I do have just one question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please
From
proceed.
full-time permanent, we went 2023 unaudited 119 to budget 144, but your positions stay the same. What's the reason for that? Through the chair.
Chair.
Through the chair to the council.
Director.
It's the 27th pay plus rate pay increases for the full-time staff.
Okay. Pay
All right,
increases.
thank you. Councilman Joseph
Thank you.
Jones.
Mr. Chairman, so I just want to get clarification because I know that we went through a process and we spent a number of hours going over, with the various different departments. But not having the directors and the commissioners here to speak
Councilman, I
to their
apologize.
departments.
Councilman, please, I apologize. I told you we're going to have that discussion in
Yeah, we
Congress.
will, we will.
So why are we going to
So-
spend time on
so
it today?
the
If we
point
could please
that
stick with the budget.
If I could, because this is my time, is that right, Mr. Chairman?
But you need to
So
stick with the
I'm
budget.
going into it, but I'm going to say what I'm going to say. And ain't nobody going to stop it. Or we're going to have a long
Councilman,
day.
Councilman, we're on the budget.
So what I'm saying.
We're on the budget, and I told you we're going to deal with operations.
I got that.
So if you got
Let
a
me-
question on the budget, you have the
Let me finish what I'm
floor.
going to say, and
All
I'll
right?
say it how I'm going to say it. And that's just where I'm going to say it.
And I'm going to gavel it if you do not stay on the budget.
The issue in front of us, Mr. Chairman, is our citizens elected us down here to represent their interest. And as I sit here at this table today, I want to be able to see some folks that run these departments so that when I sit here and ask them about these numbers.
Councilman,
I want
this
to be
is
able to
not
know.
the time we're going to have that discussion. Do you have a financial question?
I do, and I'm.
We will, with all due respect, sir, I understand what you're saying. I hear you. I do understand. I do want you to put that into the operations conversation. Right now, we are focused on this budget. So if you could, please give us whatever budgetary questions you have, and I want to acknowledge all of your time, sir.
Mr. Chairman, we certainly got to talk about this. So, and it sounds like this is going to be for the whole entire budget process. Is that correct?
We are talking strictly about the budget. Once
So we
again,
just
we
gonna
had
have one person
operational
in front of
hearings
us.
from the last quarter.
That's right.
If there
So
is
then
something that is
if-
critical, I will instruct the chief or finance director that if we need a follow-up, we will get any follow-ups we need.
Right. So I would like to sit down and talk after this about this.
I'm always gonna
And
make
so,
myself available,
because this is
Council.
critical, and I got several texts on it already.
Thank you.
So now, at the end of the day, what I will say, Mr. Chairman, to our CFO, who are all the people now that's sitting on the board of zoning appeals?
Yeah.
We're going to have a long process now.
Councilman, another thing that we could do is if you have specific questions for these directors, you can always also put the questions down, and when they, if they need to be asked,
Chairman,
then I will make sure that you get
I
whatever.
appreciate that, but it's good to see them sitting here while we talk about the budget.
Councilman, I agree with you, and I know you're right.
Right.
And you know what? I'm sorry, Councilman. I messed up, okay? Why don't you just, the director should have been here. I thought doing a 3-month process from September to December would be able to give us the time to do that. I did not anticipate that it would be this problem, okay? I don't know what else I could say to alleviate your anxiety right now, but right now we're focused on the budget. And I will have a conversation with you and the Operations Committee and any other member of this body. But this was done in a caucus setting where everybody said this is a great idea because we get to give money or get to talk about how we want things to be done on the front end as opposed to the back end. So I did not do this in a vacuum, did not do this in the dark, but you know what? It's enlightened some things, and I get your point. But please stick to the budget right now.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that. And I appreciate that. And I heard that, but I didn't think it was in lieu of. I thought that maybe when we're having these sessions, we're having it with these folks, we let them know up front, and then we would have them come here. I didn't think there would be a trade-off where they would not be sitting in budget hearing. So that wasn't clear to me.
Okay. All right, thank you. Councilman Hairston?
Did he give me the?
Oh, you still got it? You still got
He
it?
ain't gave me the names yet.
Through
You have the names.
through the chair to the councilman, from the Board of Zoning Appeals website, Elena Faith is the chairwoman, Arlisha Wilson is a board member, Nina Holzer is a board member, Priscilla Roca, and Terry Hamilton Brown.
Who do we all have? I thought we had someone else there. So it's Terry Hamilton Brown, don't you have, who was the names?
Through the chairman, Elena Faith, Arlisha Wilson, Nina Holzer, Priscilla Roca, Terry Hamilton Brown.
I see. Okay, so then she must sit on another committee. No further questions.
Thank you. Councilman Hairston?
Nope, we're good. We can move on to planning.
All right. No other questions regarding Board of Zoning Appeals. Ms. Saban, if you could read the City Planning Commission.
Page 79, City Planning Commission, Director Joyce Wong. Page 81, Salaries and Wages, 2023 unaudited, $1,510,980. 2024 budgeted, $1,896,861. Page 82, total expenditures, 2023 unaudited, $2,813,882. 2024 budgeted, $3,745,907. Number of employees, December 2023, 29. Budgeted 2024, 29, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right, are there any comments regarding the opening for the City Planning Commission?
Through the chair, I would just note the change in the full-time personnel figure is driven by the 27th pay and the fact that the department had vacancies during 2023 that have been filled, and so this figure is the 1.7 million in the 2024 adopted column is reflective of full staffing.
Thank you. Councilman Harrison, I know that you were teeing up a question.
Yep, thank you, Mr. President, and I'll be quick. And so for the full-time permanent positions, through the chair to the finance director, the increase, what is that, increases again, raises?
Through the chair, it's the combination of the 27th pay and the fact that they're fully staffed now. So they were not fully staffed all of 2023. They are now, and so this is a full year's worth of salary.
Okay, got it. No increase.
Through the chair, I believe there's a 2% cost of living increase for all
the basic
employees.
Okay. Through the chair to the finance director, under the board members, I see there was an increase in board members. Can you, what is that for?
Increase in the cost of the board members?
The board members under
I
salaries
think
and wages?
That's, through the chair. I think same 27th pay period. Also, they had vacancies on the board for a portion of last year, and so this reflects a full complement of board members and the 27th pay.
And this does not reflect an increase in the board members' stipend?
Through the chair, there might be, a few years ago, council passed legislation adjusting the pay for board members so that they could get up to the minimum amount that qualifies them for PERS contributions. We can't adjust that pay in mid-term for a board member. We have to wait till their term expires and they get reappointed. And so that's been happening on a rolling basis. As terms have come up and folks have been reappointed, their rate of pay has increased so that they can qualify for PERS contributions.
So this is no additional increase above what we put in motion to get them up to a certain level?
Through the chair, that's correct.
All right, Mr. Gentile, did you have something as well, through the chair?
Through the chair, the councilperson, no, the chief covered it, was the OPRS. Councilperson, we got complaints from a lot of board members that their pay was too low and they weren't getting credit from PRS. So we, the administration did legislation, council approved it to keep that, to raise that to a minimum level so they would get credit from PRS.
Okay, sounds good. Through the chair to the finance team, are there different pays between the chair, vice chair, and the other board members, or everyone is equal?
Through the chair, the chairs of all of these boards that get paid make slightly more than the rest of the board members. So the chairman of each of these boards and commissions gets a slightly higher rate of pay, but all the other members make the same.
Okay. Well, I will say down under contractual services, under other contractual, I know I met with Director Planning, a couple of months ago. Can you just re-explain to the members what the increase under other contractual represent?
Yes, through the chair. So there's that the amount in that item is $621,500, and that is allocated $500,000 for the citywide master plan effort, $100,000 for the form-based code pilot, $15,000 for community engagement training, $5,000 for some legal support in connection with form-based code, and then $1,500 for a membership in a planning organization called Vibrant.
Okay. To our staff, can we make sure we follow up? Can we get what you just said back to us in writing? All right. And under professional services, the increase from 15,000 to 175,000.
Through the chair, that is to provide funds for the on-call planning services that council approved last year.
Wow.
Got it. And those on-call services through the chair to the finance team, those consist of what type of work? Neighborhood plans?
Through the chair was a variety of work, and that was one of the reasons why planning sought to provide these services through a contract as opposed to full-time staff. Is there's community engagement, community planning work, sort of a variety of tasks, and so it seemed a better approach to contract that out because there wasn't a single full-time position in the work that was needed.
Got it. All right. I think that was all from me, Mr.
I think you missed one.
Chief. Chairman. I missed one.
$68,000 separation payment.
All right.
Oh, separation payments?
Yeah.
Councilman Conwell asked about the separation payments through the chair.
On that point, Councilman Conwell wants to know about the separation pay.
Through the chair, usually that's when a division anticipates retirements coming. So it's sort of known or anticipated separations that we plan for.
What you got through the chair? Did you plan to fire a lot of people, attrition, separation payments from 8,000 to 68,000? Some was $60,000 difference.
Yeah, through the chair of the councilperson, we had a pretty senior member of the city planning team that voiced that he was going to retire. He has since this year retired, so he retired a couple weeks ago. So he had let us know during 2023 when we were doing the budget, early 2024, that he was going to retire. So we built that into the budget because that was a known separation that was going to happen.
Wow, man.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, just wrapping up my questions, just a comment. You said something earlier about a time when, members of this board went completely against the member of council. And I'm that person who the board went completely against, and I will never forget it. So I hope they're listening. I will never forget it, right? And as we go along, I'm going to make sure they never forget the way they behaved during a meeting previously on the Planning Commission, all right? And I'll just leave it there. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to be gaveled out. So I'm going to leave it there. It was unacceptable, and it should have never happened. And I hope they're listening, including the administration, right down the hall from us, that it should never happen again, right? And if it happens again, then we're going to return the favor, all right? So with that being said, Mr. Chair, thank God that we have Charlie Slife on that board, who stands up for this body, who speaks up for this body, and who makes it clear when things are not being done correctly on that board, or that commission upstairs, when they are hearing projects that come before them. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Joseph Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now, this is Director Joyce Hong's department. Mr.
She
Chairman.
does oversee this, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay, so this is her department. And so, Mr. Chairman, to the CFO, when you redesigned these books, I know that we talked a little bit about that, my colleague Mike Polensik, and changing some of the verbiage that was here, explaining the department and its functions and what it does. Was these initial verbiage that we had in here, was that a part of the city charter? Was that explanations or parts or pieces that was taken from the Cleveland City Charter to explain the department and its functions?
Through the chair, I don't know the source. We worked with my staff worked with the staff in each of the divisions to come up with these descriptions of the mission, the summary, and the key programs. in
So
each
can you find out if this is a matter of charter or just something, you guys just cut it and snipped it? I mean, how did that work? I mean, so if I had to ask you right now, what, for an example, does city planning do? You're saying that this is all that they do here, that you have in front of us as a summary?
Through the chair, it is a high-level summary of what city planning does. I'm sure that it does not touch every single task executed by city planning, but it's a high-level overview.
It would be good to have that breakdown. Mr. Chairman, to the director to understand. So let me just make sure I understand. Does the city planning give out any grants?
Through the chair, does city planning give grants?
Yeah, does city planning give grants?
Not aware of city planning giving any
It
grants.
said in the old book that they deal with grants and contract and administrating and various different clerical services.
Through the
That's the
chair,
reason why I asked you, do
they
they give out
receive
grants?
grants
They receive grants.
like any other.
Do we know how many grants they've received?
Director.
Through the chair, they have, in connection with some of their planning work, they receive grants from the federal government, they receive grants from NOACA, they receive grants from Gun Foundation and other
Do
organizations.
you have that in front of you? Where you can make a copy for us?
We can provide that.
Right. If you could, Mr. Chairman, give us a list breakdown of the grants that goes to City Planning Commission to Director Hahn.
Ms. Saban, can we follow up with the request to get all the grants that go into city planning?
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, did we get a new printer for City Planning Commission?
Did we get a new printer? for city
Through the chair, I would have to check with the Division of Printing
See, that's
and
why
Supplies.
it's important to have the director here. Now, let me say this, Mr. Chairman, to the director who's going to be managing all of this, you got a tough task in front of you, because I wrote notes down from last year. Now, I've sat here at this end of this table here requesting a printout since 2018. And I still don't have it from your department. And I was given excuses on top of excuses about why they didn't have it. Then they finally came out and told me the initial system they had broke down and they were waiting on getting a new one in so they can give me the map printouts I need to have. So the question is, do they have a new printer now?
Through the chair, we'd have to check with the Division of Printing that manages all the printers.
Well, no, it's not with the Division of Printing, Mr. Chairman, to the CFO. It's a actual printer that the department itself is supposed to have in the department, so that when council members are requesting certain information that they would need, as for an example, plots and plats for different areas of the neighborhood, usually that information would come from that department. And then previous commissioners, when I requested, like for an example, Mr. Brown, I was able to get that information, and then his predecessor before him. I have not yet been able to receive the maps that I need to have from that department. And we're funding it, and I don't know, I was told that you should have had it already.
Through the chair to the councilman, as I understand from the director, she sent you the maps that you requested.
Well, I need a printout.
And they can be printed.
Hold on, Councilman, if we could not go back and forth, everybody please go through the chair, okay?
Yep.
Please proceed.
Through the chair. As I understand it, the director did provide the maps. They can be printed. The department did get the printer in 2022. And also, we can send jobs to the city print shop for printing as you need.
And Councilman, you don't have the maps yet?
No. I would like, Mr. Chairman, to the CFO to meet with Mrs. Hahn, because this has been the most difficult process ever. Like, ever. It's a simple ask. And so I would like to go and sit down and just show her what I need. Or we've had this conversation. I've requested this information going all the way back. And I don't mean to be difficult here on this end of this table, but think about it. It's 2018, and we're here at 2024 talking about it. So it would be nice to set that up, and I'm quite sure Mrs. Hong is listening, and then she can please get back with me so that we can look into it. Now, as far as the resources here, how many personnel are we budgeted for here? I know she said it, but are we going to fill all the vacancies? And it's not that many. It seems like there's 3 vacancies in this department. Is that correct?
Through the chair, as indicated on page 82, there are 23 full-time staff budgeted, and the department has 23 full-time staff on the team right now. So there are no vacancies in city planning.
So, on the board member side, do we have vacancies?
Through the chair, there's 1 vacant board position.
Okay. And who was the person that left that vacancy? That's the reason why I didn't hear that name. Do you know?
Through the chair, I do not know.
Okay. No further questions, Mr. Chairman, to the director.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, Ms. Saban, please move on to the Department of Aging.
Page 128, Department of Aging, Director Mary McNamara. Page 130, Salaries and Wages, 2023 unaudited, $631,538. 2024 budgeted, $942,796. Page 131, total expenditures, 2023 unaudited, $1,446,946. 2024 budgeted, $2,046,674. Page 132, number of employees, December 2023, 15. Budgeted 2024, 16. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Director, did you have any opening remarks?
Through the chair, I would just make the same note with respect to the full-time expenses for staff. 27th pay period adds cost. Also, the department operated in 2023 with a significant number of vacancies. So in the 2024, we're assuming those vacancies get filled, and that also explains the jump from 2023 unaudited to 2024 adopted.
Okay. Just one question that I have is, what is the cost of an unduplicated chore grass cut? Because reason I'm asking that, if you do have that available, because that number we should think about looking at that number going up. One of the things that a lot of council members have concerns about is trying to put, we couldn't use CDBG dollars because of federal requirements in order to help cut senior yards. And I know that a lot of people frown at what you could use CDBG dollars, but there are a lot of seniors that couldn't get their grass cut. And I'm trying to understand how much is it per unit, because that might be something we might look at, seeing how we can support a little bit more. If you don't have it, can you get it back to us?
Yes.
Okay? So the unit cost for an unduplicated grass cut for a yard. Now, I know that is different sizes and places, but at least if you can give us a ballpark of what they use as a unit cost, because that may be something that we might have an interest in, okay?
Yes.
Especially since a lot of us individual wards can't use or don't have the resources to do that on their own, okay? All right, thank you. Any other questions regarding Department of Aging? Okay.
I want to make a
Councilman Conwell?
The director gave me her strategic plan. It would have been nice if we had strategic plans in the book while we go through this, because it's correlated with budgeting, but I guess they do what they do. However, as the council lady, Deborah Gray, just mentioned to me, she did fill all of her positions, and they're very diverse, which I like. She's doing a good job with that. Also, what I'm going to do is give everyone a copy of her strategic plan. I'll put it in your boxes, because I have it. Matter of fact, it's in my briefcase right now. So I'll make copies. I'll give them to you. And I had a conversation, when we were in the chairman meeting, Mr. President, we talked about wheels. And we talked about how a lot of people, when they pass away, they do not have a will, and their homes get, let's say, caught up into probate court. So talking with her, Mary McInerney, she don't know I know this, because I went to the will clinic at Case Western Reserve. She's talking with the dean of outreach at Case Western Reserve. So her programs will have someone there dealing with wills. The only thing I'm looking at Santana, we don't have it in Spanish. So I got to bring that up. I didn't think about it. But looking at you, I thought about it. Because you go like, Councilman, what about the Spanish? So we'll do the Spanish part also. I'll talk with Mary McInerney. Because here's the issue. Here's the issue. When you don't have a will, or you have tenants in common, it might be 2, 3, well, you know how that goes. 2, 3 people together on a house. And if it's caught up in the probate court, the city has to end up cutting the grass. We have to eventually board the houses up. Then eventually we have to raise the property. but if in the house ended up rotting, just sitting there, and so you have an open space lot or a side lot. So she's there, and we're going to try to do some prevention and visit people wards when we do several things and have case law students there helping us. I think they call it it's a simple will, and you could put it on file at the county, so that way it will save us thousands of dollars in the city. It will help us out with some of the blight on our streets when you see vacant houses, and she's working on it. So I like that, and I'm going to thank her a lot for doing that, the Director of Aging. And so she's there. She's doing a good job. And all her positions, they're filled.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. Councilman Joseph Jones.
Mr. Chairman, to the director, the budget that we have here in our budget books that shows the total budget, what is in this book, because I know that the department agent has they get money elsewhere. So we're showing here that the total budget is it 2 million, what I'm showing here, what I'm looking at here?
Yeah, through the chair, this is the general fund component of the department's budget.
So that's 2 million. And how much is how many other funds, how much other resources are coming to her?
The department receives approximately $900,000 a year in grants through CDBG and other programs.
So it receives 2 million here and some change, and it receives $900,000 in grants. And what else do they get?
Through the chair, that is all.
So don't they get block grant money?
Through the chair, that's included in the grants, the $900,000.
So they get $900,000 in block grant money?
Through the chair, they get $900,000 in total grants, which includes block grant and grant funds from the Ohio Department of Aging.
And this is all they get for the entire department?
That is correct.
Well, I'm confused. And here's why I'm confused, Mr. Chairman. I was told that their staffing numbers were from last year. A lot of their staff was in block grant. And so are we saying that, so I'm clear? That all they have working for the entire Department of Aging is 16 people?
Chief.
Through the chair, they have 9 other folks who are funded with that grant money that I just outlined. This, I think it's important also to note that this does not include the age-friendly home repair funding that the department has received over the years. That's capital funding, which is not reflected in this budget.
So where would that be reflected, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
That, in prior years, that's been handled through reconciliation with a transfer to capital, which is then earmarked for the age-friendly home repair. Last year, council also authorized 2 years of funding with ARPA funds at a level of, I believe, $1.75 million per year for 2024 and 2025.
And do we know, Mr. Chairman, what the production is? Because it doesn't say that here.
I'm trying to find out what that is.
So through the chair, they, through the first 4 years of the program, the department conducted 599 jobs and spent just about $6.5 million. With respect to this year 5, they have a new 1-year contract that began in November of 2023 that has a budget of $2.55 million. To date, they have completed 48 jobs and spent $602,771. So there remains approximately $1.9 million left for this year's contract.
And where would I find that, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
Through the chair,
I be able to
I
go and
believe that
verify?
the director provided this to you last week.
No, ma'am. No, sir. I don't have it. So how do I verify
So
that?
where would the director have given
We're
that
talking
information to him?
about
Is that in the
finance.
presentation that she sent to him, or where would he have that?
Yeah, through the chair, as I understand, the director met with the councilman and they discussed age-friendly home repair, and we can provide this information.
We can have
separately.
that follow-up information so he can have it documented, it'd be great.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay, so Yes,
Councilman, would you allow Councilwoman Spencer?
I always will yield to my
Councilwoman Spencer
distinguished
on that.
gentleman.
Thank you, Councilman Jones. I apologize. I missed it where we're looking in the budget book through the chair for the AFIP program. Can we clarify where this is in the book?
Through the chair, it is not in the book.
Okay.
So was it in the book last year, Mr. Chairman?
Through the chair, it was not, has never been in the budget book.
This is difficult, I can tell you that much. So let me say this then. So Mr. Chairman, we got a lot of money running through this program in the Department of Aging, and we have $900,000 in grants, some of which is, we know it comes from multiple places. Can you give us a breakdown on where those grants come from?
Through the chair, yes.
All right. And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, one of the things I want to say about the Department of Aging, and I've said this before, I have a difficult time when I call her for her to respond and call me back. I have a huge amount of senior citizens that live in the Southeast Section, Ward 1, and they're serious about being able to get services from the Department of Aging. Now, I've mentioned this to the director on several occasions and it fell on deaf ears. Now, what her department does do that's really great is they handle our grass cutting program, of which they get credit for. We cut the grass and they get the credit for it. The issue is, Mr. Chairman, to the director, her person that does the financing, I'm gonna give them kudos. That person does a great job. I appreciate that end of the proposition, but I need to have an improved communications. Now, when it comes to, Mr. Chairman, to the director, these various different programs that operate out of the Department of Aging, and I've said this sitting here at the table, we need to improve production. We have a number of our seniors, they're still waiting on some of these programs. And what my contention is, Mr. Chairman, to this department director is the fact that these people don't get service. So I've even sat here and talked about closing down the application process. Because if you don't have enough contractors in place to do the work, if you don't have a system that's going to scale up to do the volume, then you shouldn't have false hope out there, people believing that they're going to get work done to their home, they're going to get a roof repaired or get a roof replaced, and 6 years down the line, Mr. Chairman, we don't see it happening, or they die waiting to get a service from the city of Cleveland. So we have to be very professional, Mr. Chairwoman, to the director to make sure that we're getting these applications in, they're processed, we scale up, and we need to change the culture. The culture in the department should be about, Mr. Chairwoman, to the director, customer service all the way. We should be able to, if we can't serve any other population in the city of Cleveland, we should at least be able to serve those senior citizens in our community who've laid the path, the foundation, and who keep their homes looking great. And when we lose our senior citizens, when we lose just one senior citizen on our street that keeps their property up, and then the LLC comes in and swoops that property up, it brings our community down. So when we put these programs, and when I try to do everything I can, Chairwoman, to make sure that those services are delivered, is for one purpose only, is that if I could keep my senior citizens in my neighborhood and extend their lifetime to 120 years, I would. Because I know one thing, our senior citizens in Ward 1 Southeast is holding up our neighborhood and our community. So I would ask, Madam Chairwoman, to the director, that this director that's in that department needs to get serious about improving the quality of life for our seniors better than what she has. Because I've been here at this table, and I'll tell you, Mr. Chairman, to the director, I've seen quality work, and I've seen our senior citizens taken care of. And I've never had to fight back and forth with the director. Previous director who served that department, called me back just like that. Always on point. And so I'm just saying I would like to see an improved service here coming out of that department to help our senior citizens, to help me to augment that. Another issue is we give money every single year to that department. and and no one has kept me abreasted of the track of what they're doing. And I asked that question to Mrs. Mary McNamara when she came back in and talked to us. The track of services in our neighborhood for the $150,000 that we give them. And then also, Mr. Chairman, being a part of understanding who's getting what and how the program is being marketed. Because see, at the end of the day, as council members sitting here at the table, we need to be able to provide a service for our citizens. And that's why when these directors and commissioners are sitting at the table, I always ask them the same question. What can we do as council members to increase the budget, to be able to give you the tools you need, so that you can really offer the quality services that our citizens need to have. And I'll tell you again, because see, sometimes some folks get this mixed up. I'm not down here, I'm down here purely for my neighborhood to bring the services over there to them. And this is one of those critical departments, Mr. Chairman, to the director, that I need to know how we can interface on that program of $150,000 and trying to get that shopped appropriately in our community. And I didn't know if, Mr. Chairman, the director has some information on that.
Director, did you have any backup?
Now, I've asked the director to give me that information. I ain't got it yet.
Through the chairman to the councilman, on directed to page 128 in the book, that includes service information.
You said 128?
I did. That includes service information by the Department of Aging during the last 3 years. It shows the number of clients served in the various programs that the department operates. And then generally, I would, Director McNamara is certainly the best among us, and I am confident that she will work with you to solve whatever the issues are you're seeing in your ward.
Well, she's pretty good, Mr. Chairman, to the director in breaking the information down. So that's my request. The services to our neighborhood, the breakdown, because this is an overall breakdown. I really can't even measure this. It doesn't even give me what I need to have. So normally when she would be sitting here at the table, she'd have her printouts. And I got to say that her piece of being able to show what she's done in every single ward is spectacular. So not to have that here today, not to have her here in front of us today is depressing.
Councilman, your time is up. And what I'm going to ask, if I could, is Councilman Conwell is over the Department of Aging. That's one of the departments he's overseeing. And one of the things that we intend to do is have more operational oversight. So Councilman, if you could maybe make sure you talk with Councilman Jones to make that part of your agenda as you move forward.
Yeah, I'll reach out to him, Mr. President, and I'll talk with the director.
Okay.
And I'll get those two together. And I think that, sir, you should have an event out in this ward with the Department of Aging director. Not to embarrass her, though. I know he's not like that. But invite her to Frederick Douglass Place and talk about some of the things that's in the rears, like housing and where it's at.
We'll work with him any kind of way, but if we could at least bring
Well,
him
I
to a
welcome that,
board
Mr.
hearing.
Chairman, to my
All right, thank you.
colleague. And it's not about embarrassment. It's about transparency. We started this out talking about transparency. So if we're going to talk about it, we need to be about it.
Okay, we got it. I think we got
I
it.
have grass cutting information for you.
Okay, and Councilman,
I got it.
he did have a number for us. Could you give us that number?
So to the chairman, to your question about the unit cost of grass cutting, the department has about 1,300 homes that are on the list for grass cutting this year. The plan is to execute 7 grass cuttings, one every 3 weeks, and that comes out to about $25 a cut.
Okay, if we could you guys capture that? Because that's something we might want to revisit. Thank you so much.
Mr. Chairman, can I add to that real quick?
Yes, please, Councilman.
And this is on your line, Mr. Chairman, just in the issue of grass cutting. They have a snow removing program in place, and a lot of my senior citizens don't know what that is, and they need to do a better job communicating that, because a lot of people feel, Mr. Chairman, that they're going to come in with a snow plow and plow out their driveways. And so they're calling me because we do our grass cutting program in our neighborhood, and they're calling to see if we do snow plowing, and I have to tell them that they're not doing that, that they are actually just shoveling a path to the doorway, to the street. And so then that needs to be clarified, and how they do that, so that senior citizens who are in the neighborhoods have a better idea of what's actually happening.
That's true. That's
Okay,
true.
we'll follow up on both of those things. Thank you so much. All right, do we have Councilwoman Spencer?
Thank you, and I have a couple questions here today, also wanting to just state that my office interacts frequently with Department of Aging, and it's a critical service for our seniors. So wanted to, through the chair, and I apologize if I missed this in earlier discussion, under contractual services, requesting detail under professional services and other contractual.
Yes, through the chair. So the professional services is for an increase to the bed bug remediation contract that the department maintains. And then other contractual is for grass cutting.
So the chore program, through the chair. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, Ms. Saban, please read the Department of Law to wrap us up for today.
Page 138, Department of Law, Chief Legal Counsel, Director Mark Griffin. Page 140, Salaries and Wages, 2023 unaudited, $7,016,379. 2024 budgeted, $8,057,282. Page 141, total expenditures, 2023 unaudited, $22,592,886. 2024 budgeted, $20,006,532. Page 142, number of employees, December of 2023, 84. Budgeted 2024, 91. Mr. Chairman.
All right, Director, did you have any opening comments?
Through the chair, just same point on the full-time salary expense. One, the department carried a variety of vacancies throughout 2023. Two is the 2% cost of living increase that we're factoring into the budget. And then the 27th pay would explain the increase in costs there.
Okay, just the same question. It looks like law always goes over their budget. Is it because of what we're paying them, or is it because we have so many outside attorneys? It looks like you're trying to actually budget the head count and increase it a little bit this year.
Through the chair, the general reason why law regularly has to receive money in the transfer and supplemental process is because of the judgments and claims that are paid by the city and settlements. So we try to be strategic in how we budget that up front so that we're not putting a big sign outside of City Hall that we have a ton of money available for settlements. So invariably, over the years, that we end up paying more than we budgeted in settlements, but there's a method to that so that plaintiff lawyers aren't coming in and saying, oh, well, you've got this money set aside, so you can afford what we're demanding.
Okay. All right, are there any other questions for law? Councilman Conwell?
You know, when I hear judgments, who sit on moral claim on city council? Mr. President?
I do.
None of my residents, that lady was mad with me on Sunday because your morals claim denied her. So
What
I
street?
get blamed for...
What street?
lady
Actually, it's
on
me
17th
and
Street.
Councilman Jones, I think.
That's right, I'm
Both
here
of us
too.
are on it.
All right.
That's right.
I don't know
If you
any
need,
of my residents
talk to me.
who have not won a settlement
Pick the
on
phone
morals
up.
claims. And they get mad with me.
Just for...
You heard what Tabitha said. Yeah, when your stuff, Councilman. So I get in touch with her. Oh, I go down there, Councilman, they messed up my curbs and everything. I don't get nothing for morals claim. And when they're in the meetings with me, they all jump on me. Because they think the council member is City Hall. That's what they think. And then so we get beat up. I haven't had a person in my 22 years of being here that I've ever won a morals claim.
Well, let me say this, because I know that we had approximately 12, and this was about, no, Councilman,
Let him talk,
I
let him
apologize. We had about 12, if I'm not mistaken, Councilman Jones, and out of that 12, at least 8 got approved.
That's right.
So I don't know why, but, and this is where sometimes if you talk to me and Councilman Jones, at least we know what's coming our way. Because we only meet twice a year.
Yeah.
And when we meet, I try very hard to try to justify whatever. Now, I will tell you, sometimes these cases, people just say, I hit a pothole on West 117th. is no evidence of where the pothole is at, no evidence or anything else that they could take a picture of. A lot of cases, they don't have any backup documentation. You can't just approve everything if somebody doesn't have much documentation. I don't know about the case that you're referring to, but it would be good if you do get that information, that we know it on the front end, so then we could know some of the details while we're deliberating. Because it's about 5 people, 3 out of law, 2 council, and then I think Ed Romero and Abu Naima. So we got like 2 people in administration, which is me and Jones, but then we have about 3 other administrative representatives. So we do try to be very lenient, but sometimes people don't have any documentation.
None.
Yeah, that's the challenge too sometimes.
You only also finance director?
Through the chair, Ed Romero sits on the committee in my place.
And it's open, right?
It's open.
So it's actually open, so anybody can actually come and watch the hearings as well.
Very transparent.
Yeah.
I need to go down there, because, like, my colleagues know, Council President, they blame us for it.
Well,
Right, I get the blame.
can I say something?
I have councilmen, hold up, before we move forward, because I got a few other council members. But I got Councilmember Jones, I have Councilman Polisic, and then I got Councilwoman Spencer and Gray, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so Jones, Polisic, Spencer, Gray.
If any, and this is just picking back and just finishing up, if anybody has any kind of moral claims, and they have their constituencies, and they need to have service, I believe in taking care of the members. It's just the fundamental way I was trained, members first. So if you got an issue, you got a problem, and you can show the evidence, I don't have no problem sitting at the table fighting for you as you see me fighting for my representation for my people every day down here. So I would get down there with the same fever and the same passion, and I'll bring it to the table to help you get what you need to help your constituents. Because I believe at the end of the day, if the city is culpable and liable, then it should pay. Right. So now, I want to ask this question, Mr. Chairman, to the director as it relates to code enforcement, building and housing. And I see that the prosecutions are down. Now, we've had a lot of problems in our city, and it's a big issue. This is not something, we got over 100 inspectors that's supposed to be inspecting. This number right here should be 5 to 10 times more than this. And so when I look at this and I divide this up to those different building and housing inspectors, I want to see some type of productivity here. And I see that it's just slipping away and going down. And so I don't understand this number. Is there any way that they can explain this number, what these outcomes were here, or what is this right here? This is just how many people, Mr. Chairman, to the director that was prosecuted last year?
Through the chair to the councilman, this is the number of prosecutions as of September 30th of last year. By the time we printed the book, we didn't have the year-to-date, the full year information, but I'm sure the department, when it's available, would be happy to provide the full year prosecution information for your review.
And then to have a breakdown, Mr. Chairman, to the director, on the production. Because, see, this was another issue on building and housing. We have a housing stock, and I don't need to tell you, I don't want to beat you up and get you depressed. You have to go, get some therapy, here
I'm a big
at
boy.
this table. That's right. But and I'm glad you are, too, and you are. They need to do a better job. And I can tell you right now, I got so many properties in my neighborhood, Mr. Chairman, to our CFO, that I don't know why they've never made the list to be prosecuted. They should be prosecuted, thrown up under the table, beat down some more, and beat again, and then thrown off in Lake Erie somewhere. And they're still there. And I can show you photos if you like, right after this meeting, so you can see what I'm having to deal with on my main streets. Now, what I would like to see, Mr. Chairman, from the director is some more love in the Lee Harvard Ward 1 area. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know who our people are. I need to be able to sit down with you and see who these new people are and to see what they're going to do. Because the old ones, Mr. Chairman, that was sent to me, I don't know where they are, what they're doing, and how many tickets they're writing, and what the follow-up. So we really fundamentally, Mr. Chairman, the director needs to have that person in here really drilling down on this whole proposition of how many tickets are actually fundamentally being written in each and every single ward on two levels, Mr. Chairman. How many properties in terms of our residential properties are you enforcing the code of the city of Cleveland? One, and then two, how many properties are you enforcing in the city of Cleveland in terms of commercial? And that should be broken down, and we should be able to see the production of those people who, if they are targeted towards our community, or is it everybody's doing everything, and at the end of the day, nothing is being accomplished? Because that's how we feel over in the Lee Harbor Ward 1 area. So when I have the director come to me and tell me everybody's doing everything, I would love to see some type of production sheet for my neighborhood. Now, I can't speak for the whole city. I only speak for the Lee Harbor Ward 1 area, but we need to do better than what we're doing right now. So when I see these numbers in terms of the prosecution and what's happening, the question is how many tickets are actually being written. And then the next thing, Mr. Chairman, to the director, dealing here with the Department of Law, how much money, because I know you touched upon it in your presentation, how much of that is set aside for lawsuits and legal actions that we have to do payouts?
Through the chairman, in the proposed budget, it's $5.5 million that's set aside for judgments and settlements.
And so then the other 15 million is for staff?
Through the chair, that's correct. Or other, there's contracts and other expenses related to the department, but the judgments and settlements is $5.5 million.
Now, what I will say is that I'm very appreciative of this administration because at least they listen and they move in a direction to try to improve the conditions, and I'm really appreciative of that. And I say that to say this, that of that 20-some million dollars, 5 million of it, which is going to deal with any kind of payouts that needs to happen. Here's one of the biggest elephants in the room. And this elephant is huge, and this elephant is big, and this elephant has plagued this table and has made not only me, but a number of council members and mayors and administrators in the past, in addition to the citizens of the city of Cleveland. Here's the big issue. The big issue is getting the contracts out. Getting the contracts out to do the work that we need to do in terms of our basic services as council members. So those resources that we get, Mr. Chairman, to the director, like block grant money and other funds, casino funds, or like, for an example, this housing program I put together. It took me 4 years to get it up and out and on the streets. This is way too long, Mr. Chairman, to our director. So when the mayor came and made his presentation, Mr. Chairman, to the director, one of the things that was important listening to him talk was that at some point they wanted to put together or have an extra law firm to help with the contracts. So as it relates to contracts in the Department of Law, how are we doing? Have we added more staff? Are we looking at more staff to add on to do that so that we can get these programs out into the streets and helping our citizens?
Director.
Through the chairman, a few things. One, the law department has added more staff and anticipates adding more yet with the vacancies that are in the budget. I think bigger picture, we are looking, as was discussed this morning during the mayor's presentation, to use technology to help streamline the contracting process so that we can get these contracts done more quickly. One of those efforts will involve trying to use more form contracts so that each individual contract is not its own thing, that instead we can use standard language, which I know we already do, but kind of leaning into that a little bit more to help streamline the process. But when we get down to negotiating specific provisions of every contract, it is a painstaking process, and it takes a lot of time. And that's the difference between contracts that go out quickly. Those are more standardized, less unique, fewer unique provisions in them, versus the ones that are really bespoke or customized to that particular effort. they just take a long time to negotiate. There's really no way of getting around that. But to the extent we can expedite the process with technology, having a single contract management system that will digitize the process from beginning to end, removing the need for paper to move around the building and to get mailed, via the postal service to the counterparty, which, that adds several days to the process. We're in the process of doing that. The contract system should be implemented and up and running this spring. And that's in addition to the technological enhancements we're making to the payments process, which will expedite the time it takes for people to receive payment for the services that they're doing on behalf of the city.
Well, I just want to say that, getting that down and getting the, that elephant cut off 1 foot at a time, or if you can hack him up in parts, however you do it, was really important. And I appreciate the fact that your administration is looking at the direction to try to do that, bite it down, chew it up, so that we can get this out here, because nothing says I love you more to our citizens than being able to deliver the product and the services in a timely way. So when you can get those contracts, Mr. Chairman, to the CFO and to the administration settled in a way, because, I've had awful long periods of time, Mr. Chairman, hours actually, talking about this whole process. So right now you're saying if you get everything up and running, ideally, what does that timeline look like if you got it in place on being able to get stuff out in a timely fashion from where you are right now? I know I've seen some improvements, so I have to give that recognition, but if you could elaborate a little bit more on timeline.
And Councilman, your time is up after that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chair to the councilman. Hard to say exactly how many days it's going to shave off the process. I mean, that assumes, the vision that I have assumes that all of the legal issues associated with the contract have already been sorted out. So, if there are issues around the terms in the contract, those are going to have to get negotiated and sorted out. Law department's going to have to sign off on those to ensure that we're acting within our legal authority. Where I'm focused is operationally, all right, so the contract is, we're ready to go. How quickly can we move it through the system? Once we have the system in place, we'll be able to benchmark the new system against the status quo as it stands today. But I expect it'll greatly reduce the time it takes to move a contract from point A to the end of the process at point Z.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the director.
Thank you. I have Councilman Polisic, Spencer, Gray, Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and to the director. I just want to follow up on the issue of the moral claims, especially to the folks that are viewing this from home and elsewhere. What is critical, and I served on the Moral Claims Commission a long time ago, what is important, and I'm saying this basically talking to people who are watching this, if you do hit a pothole, you are hit by a city vehicle, please make a police report.
Yeah.
And take a picture. Do whatever you can to document. If your basement is flooded, report it and take a picture. Because most people have at least a cell phone or a camera phone that they could do that. And because I find one of the biggest challenges that I'm and my colleagues are confronted with, as the council president alluded to, people who have no evidence and then are expecting to get reimbursed. And the city is self-insured. I want to say that again to the people watching this. We're not covered by a major progressive or insurance company. We are self-insured. So if you file a claim, you got to substantiate it's real. So please file a police report, take pictures, do whatever you have to do, notify the various department or division. So that's number one. Number two, if you could provide to us, and doesn't again, you could one of our requests per budget and line item, specifically the number of individuals in law that are working on specifically building and housing code prosecutions, if we can receive that. The names, contact information for those individuals to staff. And then my last question to the director of request is that the law director was supposed to be working on or coming up with a better process as it pertains to notification to council members with regard to police reports that we it's a big concern with us as it pertains to the lack of information we're getting. He was supposed to deep dive on that to see what he could do to improve that process. I have not heard nothing back as of yet. I'm assuming that they're still working on it. But I would again officially make that request through the chair to staff, because just to get reports that are all redacted out are of no benefit to me and those that help me in working on crime and criminal activity in my community and in the 5th District. So again, I make that request through the chair to council staff and to the administration as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Saban. Ms. Oda Martins, do you have that? Okay, thank you. All right, next up we have Councilwoman Jenny Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to ask through the chair whether any of the increases in staffing or budgetary are related to Residents First and the corresponding need to ramp up code, I would presume ramp up code enforcement attorneys.
Director, Chief.
Through the chair, no, and for the same reasons as we discussed earlier with building and housing, Residents First did not exist legislatively when we built the budget, and a similar answer to building and housing staffing needs. If it turns out the law department needs additional staff to keep up with the new workload created by the new legislation, given our collective interest in ensuring that Residents First is a success, we will ensure that whatever staff is needed is provided to any of the departments affected by Residents First.
So through the chair, Director Griffin would similarly need to use the vacancy pool to staff code enforcement attorneys.
Through the chair, that's correct.
I wanted to briefly ask about the detail under contractual services through the chair for professional services and other contractual.
Through the chair, the professional services is for outside attorney fees. And I would note that the 2023 amount was a bit higher than what we're budgeting for 2024 due to the large amount of labor negotiation activity that was done in 2023. Most of the contracts are behind us, so the bulk of that workload is done. Some does remain, but we don't anticipate outside counsel fees to hit what we saw in 2023 because of the fact that most of that work is behind us.
Through the chair to the director, when, since some of the labor negotiations took their time, let us say, when would renewed labor negotiations begin? I believe sooner rather than later, but for clarification through the chair, when will those negotiations begin?
So the contracts all expire on March 31st of 2025. It is my great hope that we can never repeat what we've just gone through, which was negotiating all of these contracts after they've expired. And I would love for us to be in a position to have started negotiations well in advance of the March 31st, 2025 date, so that we can more expeditiously get these contracts done and avoid the messy process of retroactive pay for the unionized employees, because it's a complicated, cumbersome process that involves mistakes. It makes the finalization of these contracts really, really difficult because you have to sort of recreate history. You have to figure out, if someone was working out of classification for 2 hours this day, 3 hours the next day, the retroactive pay is impacted by all of those nuances. And if we could be in a position to have these contracts in place before they expire, then we would greatly simplify the process to the benefit of everyone involved. So that's the objective, is that we have this done before March 31st, 2025.
And then through the chair, then in order to meet that what I hope is not too aspirational of a deadline, when would those negotiations need to begin again? And is it fair to say through the chair that the $3 million here under professional services would reflect outside attorney fees for labor negotiation?
Yeah, and so the process would start at some point this year if we wanted to hit that goal of March 31st, 2025. But I think if we are able to pursue this alternate path, the process as a whole would be far less complicated and would require far less outside attorney time to get completed. I think one of the issues we ran into is we got in a position where we were negotiating kind of individual contracts with each union, which is incredibly time-consuming and labor-intensive for outside attorneys, and that's one of the factors that led to the increased fee. So my hope is that we can be a bit more efficient going forward in how we handle this process for the next round.
Thank you. And through the chair, I think that was actually my next question, which was, is there, I don't know exactly how to phrase it, but is there a best practice, or is there a reason that we tend to use outside attorneys? What proportion is spent on outside attorneys? Could it be handled? Could these negotiations be handled in-house, or a larger proportion be handled in-house?
I think that's part of the assessment that we're making right now. So one of the challenges with using in-house staff fully for our negotiations is that all 34 of our contracts expire at the same time. And so there's this huge sort of acute peak of work that happens every 3 years, which is frankly easier to manage using outside counsel to manage those peaks and valleys. I think if we were to smooth that work out a bit and in terms of when contracts expire, that could make it easier for us to handle it in-house, because the peak wouldn't be as high in terms of the demands of getting these contracts done. But that's part of the assessment we're making to identify if there are ways that we can make this process more efficient. And we would of course need to work closely with our the labor unions that have that represent employees of the city to develop that future path that could be more efficient collaboratively with them, so we're not running up against brick walls.
Thank you. I'll leave it at that for now, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. I have two more speakers, Gray and Casey.
Thank you, Chair. I just have two questions. Chair, to the director, our chair spoke on that, the board gives 2 hearings a year for more claims. What is the time frame? Is it like January or June, December? And the only reason why I'm asking is because a lot of constituents who file more claims, they are waiting for a long period of time to get, to be reimbursed. And when that time comes, they lose their case or they have been waiting such a long time, they wondering what happened after they have lost so much money of fixing what they, that the city damaged. So what are the 2 time frames of the hearings?
May and November.
May and November.
I knew it was recently, but November was the last time we had one, so they're always May and November.
And how long is, and Chair, Director, how long is the process after yes.
Look, go ahead, Bill.
How long is the process of the decision once that decision is made for them to reclaim their funding? How much more time do they have to wait?
Yeah, through the chair, I think it's either, I don't know if it's charter or ordinance, but legally it can take up to 12 weeks for a decision. But I know with the November meeting,
we made it right there.
The decisions were made, and there has to be legislation that actually authorizes the payments, and that legislation was done by the last
December.
Meeting in December.
Okay, 12 weeks. All right.
But it was in this last meeting, it was done within a week or 2.
Right.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is, what type of, Chair, Director, what type of claims were paid out? Because you have in here, I'm not sure, you have judgments, damages, and claims. In 2024 budget, it showed, is that $5,500 was paid out? So what type of claims were paid out when the moral claims was won by the constituent?
Are they public records?
Is that public records?
Because some some of it is private. That's why I'm not sure if it's.
I'm just saying what type, because you had, because you made an example of potholes, and then my colleague made an example of damaged basement, so.
Can we redact the names and give kind of the background of the actual cases, so then the council lady and others who want to review could actually see, like, kind of a case that was actually approved versus a case that might have not been accepted? And then that way the councilperson could kind of get a sense of how those decisions are made. Is that possible?
I think so, to the chair, yeah.
That, Councilwoman, would that be helpful?
Yes, that's very helpful.
So then that way you can compare a case that has been successfully petitioned versus one that was unsuccessful. Okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. On that point, just on that point, Councilman
I want
Jones.
to be added on. I got some questions.
Okay, then Councilman Gazy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, just some points of reference. You're going to have to give me the information. I'm sure you don't have it here. One, Mr. Chairman, to the director, can you provide the council with a list of all the outside counsel that received dollars in 2023, their fees, and how much we gave to them total, if you don't have it with you?
Through the chair, yes, and I can give this to the clerk who can make a photocopy for each member.
Give it
Okay.
to
All right.
Inez, if we could. Thank you.
And then also, in the book, you've got the cases that were worked on. Can you provide us with the number of cases that the prosecutor nollied or dismissed? In other words, how many cases brought forward but we didn't prosecute? And then if you could, my final question is, if you could provide information on any cases that were cited under Ordinance 98-2022.
Ms. Saban, Ms. Odie Martins, do you guys have that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Casey. Councilman Jones, you have the last comment.
Mr. Chairman, who is the chief corporate counsel for the city?
Through the chair to the councilman, that is Rhonda Curtis.
Who?
Rhonda Curtis.
Is that with a C?
Through the chair, yes.
Who is our chief counsel?
Through the chair, that is Mark Griffin.
Mark Griffin is the chief counsel? I thought he was the director of law.
I'm sorry, were you asking chief legal counsel?
Yeah, who's the chief counsel? You have the director of law, and then you have the chief counsel.
Oh, the chief counsel for special projects is,
Michelle Comer.
yeah, it's
Michelle
Michelle Comer.
Who?
Sorry, Michelle Comer.
Michelle Comer?
Yes.
Who is the chief trial counsel?
Through the chair, that's Elena Boop.
Who?
Elena Boop,
Elena Boop?
correct?
And then lastly, who is the executive assistant to the mayor? From the law department.
I'm having, through the chair, I'm having a moment. My brain is not working
Take
right
your
now.
time, Mr. Chairman.
No, no.
Can we get that back if we need it, instead of trying to do that here? Because that's going to open up an entire whole new conversation.
I'm sorry, it's Lee Anderson.
Lee Anderson?
Lee Anderson, who handles
The
she's
police
St. Louis,
accountability.
stands the police accountability team.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, that's all.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other questions, we're going to adjourn for the call of the chair tomorrow. Public safety begins abruptly at 9 a.m. Please be on time. Councilman Mike Polinsik will have first chair tomorrow. And once again, we are trying to focus on budget. I would also ask everyone, if you have not gotten it, please get the breakdown from the policy team of all of the asks that were asked and that were compiled during the operational hearings in the last quarter of last year. You can also leave your books in here. This room will be secured and locked. I just would advise you not to leave any valuables, but you can leave your materials that you're studying. And Councilman Mike Palencia.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues, do we know how much of that information we received to date that we had requested?
Can we get, I don't have it in front of me, but I
Okay.
will tell you that we did receive a significant part. Ms. Odie Martin, do you know? Can you have a conversation with Councilman Palencia? Because he's asked how much information that we requested did we get back. So could you go over that with him briefly after this meeting?
Mr.
Thank
Chairman,
you.
on that point,
On that point, Councilman Joseph Jones.
do we have the documentation already organized, like broken
They
down
have
of departments?
Yeah, they have documentation of what were suggested inputs.
And they can make that available to
You
us?
can talk to
email?
them, yes, because you should have had it several times, okay?
Can,
All right.
can they resend it to me?
Can you give Councilman Jones the document and go over it with him again?
Wonderful, thank
Okay?
you.
All right, we're going to adjourn to the call of chair till tomorrow, February 21st.